Chapter 1168. Killing Intent Strikes. Since I can't control them, I'll just let them be. The higher-ups of the Sacred Institute are really cunning. Yi Fei sighed. Without stopping, he chose a random direction and rushed toward the forest in the east. Since he wanted to hunt vicious beasts, it was better to choose a place with a forest. Roar. As expected, as soon as he rushed into the forest, a strange wolf with flames all over its body rushed out in the dark. And it was not just one wolf, but dozens of them. Pale white flames floated in their eyes. In the dark night, they looked like will-o'-the-wisps flying in the sky, making people's hair stand on end. These are the hell skeletal wolves of the 5th level Martial Saint realm. The Wolf King among them can even reach the peak of the 7th level Martial Saint realm. It's called the nightmare of the Sacred Institute's disciples. Hiss. Yi Fei broke out in cold sweat. He felt that he was really unlucky. He didn't have a share of the treasures in the secret realm, but all kinds of dangers were coming for him. According to Gua Wang's information, there were very few hell skeletal wolves in the Bloodshed Valley. The probability of encountering them was almost 1%. But even with such a small probability, Yi Fei had actually encountered it. Roar. Roar. While Yi Fei was observing the hell skeletal wolves, the Wolf King hiding in the dark also blinked its cunning eyes and observed him. The vicious beasts were all intelligent. As the leader of the pack, the Wolf King was even more intelligent. But when it saw that Yi Fei was alone and was only a 5th level Martial Saint, the Wolf King couldn't hold back anymore. With a loud roar in the dark night. In the dark night, the dozens of hell skeletal wolves surrounding Yi Fei all rushed toward Yi Fei crazily while drooling and grinding their sharp teeth. Their sharp claws formed wind blades, cutting countless cracks in the space. The wind blades of the hell skeletal wolves swept toward Yi Fei's direction. The towering ancient trees in that direction were all cut down from the middle and fell down with a rumble. If it hit a person, it was possible that the person would be cut in half at the waist. The cold sweat on Yi Fei's forehead increased. Other than cursing his own bad luck for encountering a pack of hell-bone wolves as soon as he entered, the only thing he could do was to continuously dodge. After all, there were too many hell-bone wolves and fighting them head-on would be courting death. After consecutively repelling 2 hell-bone wolves that approached him, Yi Fei broke into a run, wanting to leave this forest. Roar. At this time, the Wolf King in the darkness could no longer hold back. Its silver-gray fur released a flash of light, turning into a ball of silver lightning. It swooped down from a large tree, opened its huge mouth, and spat out a burning silver ball of light. Bang! The silver ball of light landed on the ground, creating a terrifying shockwave. Yi Fei was caught off guard and fell to the ground. Even though he wasn't injured, he was covered in dirt. When the surrounding wolves saw the opportunity, their eyes all shone with a bloody light. They howled and pounced on Yi Fei. "You're courting death." Yi Fei was thoroughly enraged. He understood that the Wolf King's speed was even faster than his 100-li instant. It was almost impossible for him to escape. The only thing left for him was to fight to the end. Fortunately, there weren't many wolves this time. If he fought to the death, he might have a chance to kill the wolves. Kill. Yi Fei nimbly jumped up from the ground. He touched his spatial belt, and a new Devourer's sword appeared in his hand. He swung it forward with all his might, and the first hell-bone wolf's head was already half chopped off. Red and white blood splattered everywhere. Clang! Another loud sound rang out. Yi Fei brandished his sword wildly, creating a terrifying sword wind that formed an impenetrable wall, blocking the nether skeletal wolf's violent claws and bites. Taking advantage of the slight chaos in the wolf pack, Yi Fei took a big step forward. The Devourer's sword was covered in a demonic light and an endless aura of death. It fiercely swept forward, creating a resplendent sword light. Profound meaning of life and death, sword of death. The whistling sword chi swept forward, killing the 3 hell-bone wolves closest to him. Yi Fei's murderous intent was revealed, and he actually killed his way through the wolf pack that surrounded him. The Devourer's sword created a terrifying storm of death as it pierced towards the Wolf King in the end. To shoot a man, shoot the horse first. To capture bandits, capture the king first. As long as I kill this Wolf King, let's see if this pack of wolves will still retreat. A cold light flashed in Yi Fei's eyes. A hell-bone wolf tried to stop him from advancing. It didn't hesitate to use its own body to bite the Devourer's sword. At the same time, its sharp claws were covered in a cold light as it frantically clawed at Yi Fei's throat. This hell-bone wolf actually wanted to perish together with him. It was quite intelligent, but it was a pity that the difference in strength between them was too great. The sword of death in his hand suddenly changed into the Tai Chi Profound. The resplendent Tai Chi sword diagram protected Yi Fei from the front. Any hell-bone wolf that approached him was blocked by the Tai Chi sword diagram. Yi Fei took advantage of the opportunity to stride forward. He was only 30 meters away from the Wolf King. A deep sense of fear flashed across the Wolf King's cunning eyes. The vicious beast's instincts allowed it to clearly feel the terror of Yi Fei's two swords. Even if it was the Wolf King, it might not be able to withstand Yi Fei's swords, which were imbued with profound. Awo! The Silver Wolf King howled again. However, it was no longer an attack. It was a signal for the wolf pack to retreat. After discovering Yi Fei's strength, the Wolf King, who didn't want to suffer any more losses, decisively chose to retreat. Damn it! It wasn't easy for us to find this pack of hellbone wolves. To think that they would be defeated so quickly by that piece of trash. On a mountain peak in the darkness, Qiu Mingshan was furious. He was so angry that smoke came out of his nostrils as he watched the wolf pack flee in panic. His plan to use the wolf pack to wear down Yi Fei had failed. Qiu Mingshan's second uncle, who was beside him, looked at him with disdain. He finally opened his mouth and sneered. Yi Fei does have some tricks up his sleeves. However, since I was able to lure the hell-bone wolves here, how can I let them retreat so easily? Go crazy, wolf pack! As he spoke, second uncle quickly took out a bottle of elixir. The elixir melted into the air and turned into a pink mist. It quickly drifted towards the wolf pack along with the night wind. After absorbing the mist, the Wolf King, who had originally planned to retreat, had a lifeless look in its eyes. Then, it became crazy and bloodthirsty. Roar! All the wolves suddenly went berserk. Under the leadership of the Wolf King, they quickly turned around and charged towards Yi Fei without regard for their lives. The wolf pack wasn't the only one who went crazy. Wherever the pink mist spread, the vicious beasts hidden within it all went berserk. Then, they charged towards Yi Fei from all directions without regard for anything else. Yi Fei couldn't help but reveal a look of horror. Two words subconsciously appeared in his mind: beast-tide. But soon, he subconsciously denied this speculation. It can't be a beast-tide. This is the Bloodshed Valley, the place where the sacred court imprisons the vicious beasts. If a beast-tide were to occur here, any disciple who enters the Bloodshed Valley would die. The sacred court wouldn't let such a thing happen. Since it's not a beast-tide, there's only one possibility. Chapter 1169. It was too early to be happy. After learning of this possibility, Yi Fei carefully observed his surroundings. Even though it was dark, he still managed to find some clues. In particular, there was still a trace of pink gas in the air, which made Yi Fei's heart skip a beat. This kind of gas was definitely not naturally produced. Someone must have released this kind of gas on purpose in the dark, causing the hell-bone wolves to go berserk. I have to kill my way out as soon as possible. I can't let these vicious beasts surround me. As the pink gas spread, the hell-bone wolves were no longer the only ones in the forest who had targeted him. At the same time, a black dragon python suddenly shot over from the distance like a bolt of lightning. It opened its mouth like a snake trying to swallow a dragon or an elephant, and was about to swallow Yi Fei whole. Die! Boom. Boom. Yi Fei retreated, but he did not even turn his head. He had already slashed the head of the dragon python that had ambushed him in half. The huge snake head fell to the ground. The thick blood aura not only did not cause the surrounding vicious beasts to retreat, but also made them even more berserk. More than 10 hell-bone wolves immediately rushed out and gnawed the dragon python's flesh into a pile of bones. Then, they continued to stare at Yi Fei with ferocious gazes. Whoa! That abominable wolf king seemed to have gone crazy. After going berserk, it actually raised its head and roared angrily at the moon. A silver radiance rushed out from its body and flew into the sky, dyeing the moon with a layer of silver-white halo. The halo continued to expand, and the faint sound of wolves howling could be heard from the depths of the forest. That damned wolf king! It's bad enough that it went berserk, but it's actually gathering its companions. It's trying to use its advantage in numbers to exhaust me to death. I can't wait any longer. I have to find a way to break out. Kill, kill, kill. Sword light flashed, illuminating the sky. Actually, Yi Fei was not afraid of these 5th or 6th level vicious beasts alone. What he was afraid of was that these vicious beasts would unite and form a beast tide. In that case, no matter how strong he was, he would not be a match for hundreds or thousands of vicious beasts. Without knowing who the enemy was, the only way Yi Fei could deal with it was to kill the vicious beasts blocking his way as soon as possible and leave the forest. Puff! Another skeletal wolf rushed to Yi Fei's side. It stood up like a human and tried to use its weight to push Yi Fei to the ground. Yi Fei immediately activated his devouring spirit sword. Sword light whistled, destroying the world. With one strike, the skeletal wolf was pierced into pieces. That's a pseudo-thearch weapon. Damn it! He must have used my contribution points to exchange for it. I'm going to kill him. I'm going to torture him to death. Qiu Mingshan's eyes turned red when he saw that Yi Fei had a pseudo-emperor weapon. He had saved up so many contribution points to exchange for a pseudo-emperor weapon from the sacred institution. However, before he could make a move, his identity token had fallen into Yi Fei's hands and exploded on the spot. He was really angry. A pseudo-thearch weapon. Not bad, not bad. When this kid is killed by the beast tide, not only can I get his head, I can also get a pseudo-thearch weapon. Although that was what second uncle said, when he saw that Yi Fei had a quasi-emperor weapon, his expression turned much graver. When he saw that the number of ferocious beasts in the surroundings was still small, he did not hesitate to open the bottle in his hand again, releasing even more pink mist into the air. Roar, roar, roar. As the fog spread, the ferocious beasts in the forest became even more violent. Yi Fei was secretly glad that he had not ventured too deep into the forest. Although there were many ferocious beasts around, other than the pack of dim radiant bone wolves, the other ferocious beasts were all ordinary ferocious beasts below the 5th rank. It was just that there were so many of these ferocious beasts that Yi Fei simply could not kill them all. After killing one, a group would immediately rush up. If it were not for the fact that Yi Fei had 8 primordial spirits in his body and had a very strong ability to fight continuously, if it were any other 5th level martial sage, they would have long been drowned by this ferocious beast tide. Another sword strike sent the Wolf King, who was trying to get close, back. At the same time, a deep wound appeared on the Wolf King's thigh. Yi Fei hurriedly retreated and gasped for breath. He knew that he could not continue fighting like this. Otherwise, he would be exhausted to death by this endless tide of vicious beasts. Call out the dragon turtle to help? That did not seem possible. Now that the enemy is in the dark and I am in the open, I don't even know who the enemy is or what his cultivation realm is. If I call out the dragon turtle, I will only expose my trump card. In the end, I still have to discover the enemy first before deciding whether to fight or leave. His mind spun rapidly. If he was not careful, the Wolf King would actually pounce and bite at Yi Fei's sword-wielding arm. Purple gold taiji. Of course, the Wolf King would not succeed. Realizing that the situation was not good, and hearing the faint howls of wolves in the distance, Yi Fei decisively gave up on attacking and focused on defense. The bright Taiji ball turned the area around Yi Fei into an absolute safe zone. However, Yi Fei was not happy. His expression became more and more serious. What's going on? My divine sense can't sense where the enemy is. He had already given up on attacking and fully activated his divine sense. However, he was still unable to determine where the enemy was and what method he was using to control this group of vicious beasts to deal with him. Haha, go ahead and search. I guarantee that you will die a horrible death tonight. Qiu Mingshan secretly sensed Yi Fei's divine sense searching everywhere. He was so happy that he wanted to throw his head back and laugh. Even if it's a pity that I can't torture him to death with my own hands, having him eaten by the vicious beasts will also relieve the hatred in my heart. Don't be so optimistic. This Yi Fei is not simple. When he's almost exhausted, we will immediately attack. We must kill him instantly. We must not give him a chance to escape or call for help. Second uncle's expression was calm. His eyes were fixed on Yi Fei's purple gold taiji. Qiu Mingshan also realized that he had been happy too early. Faced with the siege of hundreds of vicious beasts, Yi Fei's purple gold taiji did not shatter apart from shrinking to a radius of 5 meters. However, although the vicious beasts could not break through the defense of the purple gold taiji, Yi Fei could not do much about these vicious beasts either. Kill, I can't kill them all. Run, I can't outrun them. If this continues, it will be a battle of attrition. The enemy in the dark must be waiting for me to exhaust my quintessential essence before attacking me. I must not give them this chance. Seeing that the vicious beasts could not break through his taiji defense for a while, Yi Fei simply sat down on the ground and used all his strength to activate his divine sense. He scanned every inch of land in all directions. Whether it was the sky, the ground, or the ground, he did not miss a single spot. After searching a full 500 miles, he still did not find any trace of the enemy. This was simply impossible. If the enemy wanted to control so many vicious beasts, they could not be too far away. If his divine sense could not find them, there were only 2 possibilities. 1. The enemy was too strong and could perfectly avoid his divine sense. 2. The enemy might have some treasure that could block divine sense. Chapter 1170. This was a tragedy. Boom. While Yi Fei was deep in thought, the Berserk Wolf King led the Netherbone Wolf and launched another attack on Yi Fei. The range of the purple gold taiji had also increased from 5 meters to 3 meters. Although the purple gold taiji was invulnerable, there were too many vicious beasts surrounding Yi Fei. Moreover, the vicious beasts were all physically strong and possessed astonishing strength. As these forces continued to stack up, Yi Fei's taiji defense continued to weaken even with the support of the taiji profound meaning. Yi Fei had no choice but to stop releasing his divine perception and once again immerse himself in the endless battle with the vicious beasts. One vicious beasts after another died under Yi Fei's sword. However, even more vicious beasts were attracted by the pink mist and continued to swarm over from afar. As a result, the more vicious beasts were killed, the more vicious beasts there were. If this situation continued, Yi Fei would either die in battle or run away. However, when he realized that the enemy in the dark might have used some kind of treasure to conceal their presence, Yi Fei suddenly thought of a third method. Xiao Qiao, hurry up and help me sense where the spirit energy is the most abundant and powerful. Then tell me. While secretly instructing Xiao Qiao, Yi Fei put on a desperate expression and shouted, "Evil beasts, I'll fight it out with you today." Haha, this idiot. He doesn't intend to run away. He actually intends to fight the vicious beasts to the death. When Qiu Mingshan heard this from afar, he was secretly delighted. He couldn't wait for Yi Fei to be seriously injured by the vicious beasts so that he could go out and take advantage of the situation. Beside him, second uncle also smiled and nodded. When he saw that Yi Fei was still undefeated despite being besieged by hundreds of vicious beasts, he couldn't help but want to suddenly attack and catch Yi Fei off guard. However, when he saw the despair on Yi Fei's face and how he was about to fight the vicious beasts to the death, second uncle changed his mind. He planned to wait until Yi Fei's last bit of energy was exhausted before attacking. This way, he would be more confident in instantly killing Yi Fei. However, the two secretly happy people didn't know this. After hearing Yi Fei's words, Xiao Chao, who was in the beast mark space, sat cross-legged on the ground. He waved his small hand and a spirit wind. In the end, this spirit wind of 7 colors blew out of the beast mark space and pervaded the entire land. Yi Fei, who was fighting, didn't notice that as the spirit wind blew out, the branches and leaves of the entire forest, whether it was the towering ancient trees or the weeds on the ground, drooped slightly. Faintly, there were even specks of green light that were transmitting information to each other. Naturally, Qiu Mingshan and second uncle, who were still stepping on weeds and thought that they had hidden well, were exposed in an instant. Xiao Chao called out and pointed his small hand directly at the place where the two were hiding. Yi Fei immediately roared. Without thinking, he suddenly activated 100 miles in an instant and charged toward a hillside 100 miles away. Boom! A huge sword light whizzed down. That hillside was cut in half by Yi Fei's sword. Then, 2 embarrassed figures rushed out from the hillside like lightning. How did he find out where I was? Second uncle, who rushed out, was shocked. In order to enter the sacred institute, he had specially prepared a treasure that even spiritual sense couldn't detect. Even if he was beaten to death, he still couldn't figure out how Yi Fei found out where he was. Qiu Mingshan, who rushed out after him, was even more shocked. He shouted at second uncle, "What's wrong with you? Didn't you say that even martial monarchs couldn't see through your treasure?" Qiu Mingshan had taken a huge risk in order to let this person sneak into the sacred institute. "Qiu Mingshan, it's actually you." At this moment, Yi Fei finally saw the person who had plotted against him. It was actually Qiu Mingshan again. He immediately bristled with anger. If he had known earlier that this person was a scourge, he would have killed Qiu Mingshan when they were fighting for the spiritual mountain. However, it was too late to say anything now. In order to force these two people out, Yi Fei had paid a heavy price. The muscles on his back had been torn into a bloody mess by the vicious beasts chasing after him. If these two people were martial sages, Yi Fei would have had the confidence to fight them. However, when he sensed that the person beside Qiu Mingshan had the aura of a half-martial emperor, he turned around and ran without saying anything. As he ran, he used his undying energy to quickly heal his injuries. "Where do you think you're going? Since you found out, I can't let you live." Second uncle reacted quickly. After all, he was a half-martial emperor. He caught up with Yi Fei in a single step. "Yi Fei, stop right there. I, Qiu Mingshan, will fight you to the death." Qiu Mingshan let out a beast-like roar. He was really meeting his enemy. His face turned red with anger. Unfortunately, when Yi Fei rushed over, the Berserk Wolf King also led a large group of vicious beasts over. Seeing that there were 2 more people here and Yi Fei was running quickly, the half-martial emperor vicious beasts did not dare to provoke them. They roared angrily and surrounded Qiu Mingshan. They went forward and tore at him crazily. Qiu Mingshan was so angry that he could not break out of the encirclement of the vicious beasts in a short period of time. Trash! Second uncle could not help but curse when he saw this. He knew that he could not count on Qiu Mingshan. He could only charge at Yi Fei personally. He flipped his palm and condensed a strange round wheel. Then, he slammed it down on Yi Fei's body. The fate wheel of the Legalist. He's from the Legalist. Yi Fei was extremely shocked. Could it be that his identity had been discovered by the legalists so quickly? They even sent a half-martial emperor to sneak into the sacred institute to kill him. Damn it, that bastard Faihai. The legalists sent a half-martial emperor to kill me, and he didn't even notify me in advance. Does he think that I can't take care of him after leaving the battle god space? I must give him a harsh warning. Furious, Yi Fei did not think too much. In a fit of anger, he summoned the blood orb condensed by Faihai's blood oath of the heavenly Tao and squeezed it. His original intention was to vent his anger on Faihai because he couldn't beat the half-martial emperor behind him. What Yi Fei did not expect was that the half-martial emperor, who was about to catch up to him, would suddenly scream when he squeezed the blood orb. He clutched his head and stopped attacking Yi Fei. Why? Why does my soul hurt so much? What sorcery did you use on me? Second uncle's face was filled with anger. The pain made his eyes bulge. He looked extremely ferocious and terrifying. I didn't do anything. I was just venting my anger on a random person from the school of legalism. Wait, I'm pinching Faihai's blood bead. Why did the half-emperor from the school of legalism suddenly scream? Could it be? Suddenly Yi Fei thought of something. He decisively abandoned the idea of taking out the dragon turtle and running. Instead, he exerted force and pinched the blood bead in his hand. Second uncle, who had endured the pain and wanted to catch up and kill Yi Fei first, didn't scream this time. He was wailing like a pig being slaughtered. It hurts. Young master, I was wrong. I didn't betray you. I didn't tell the patriarch anything about you. Please don't kill me. Then, Yi Fei watched dumbfoundedly as the half-martial emperor, who had been so aggressive and wanted nothing more than to catch up and kill him, fell to the ground with a face full of fear. He was constantly kowtowing in all directions. Clearly, he didn't know where the person who had tortured him was. Yi Fei suddenly felt that life was actually a tragedy. However, the half-martial emperor's actions were enough to confirm his identity. Chapter 1171. Hall of Life and Death. Pinching Faihai's blood bead, the half-emperor chasing after him immediately screamed like a pig being slaughtered. At this moment, Yi Fei still didn't know who was chasing after him. He should buy a piece of tofu and knock himself to death. Great Faihai. I was just worried that I wouldn't be able to find you. You actually ran into the holy court to assassinate me. Yi Fei's anger soared to the heavens as he suddenly pinched the blood bead in his hand. Faihai was in so much pain that his soul almost scattered. At this moment, he finally stopped begging for mercy and turned his head in shock. He looked at the blood bead in Yi Fei's hand in disbelief. That blood bead contained a strand of Faihai's soul. It was also his Achilles heel. Ever since he returned to the legalists, Faihai had washed his face with tears more than once. He was extremely regretful that he had been possessed and had been tricked by that fake young master. Not only had he sold his life, but he had also sold his body. It wasn't easy for the elders of the legalists to let him go when they saw that he was also a half-emperor and that he still had some value to the legalists. They allowed him to atone for his crimes and come to kill Yi Fei. In the end, Faihai would never have imagined that Yi Fei was actually the fake from the battle god space. Young master, you are actually the young master. You tricked me so hard. Being sold and even helping to count a lot of money, Faihai was filled with regret. He was angry, and hateful. He didn't know how to face this situation. Fortunately, Yi Fei was more experienced in this kind of situation. He hurriedly comforted Faihai. Faihai, don't blame me. Back then, you were the one who took the initiative to swear to follow me. I didn't force you. I even asked you to carefully consider it. Unfortunately, you didn't even consider it and swore the heavenly Tao blood oath on the spot. It would have been better if he hadn't mentioned it. Now that he mentioned it, Faihai was so regretful that he almost vomited blood. Now let me ask you one thing. Do you want to die or live? Yi Fei picked up the blood bead in his hand and looked like he was going to crush it. Once the blood bead shattered, even a half-step emperor would die. This was the dreadfulness of the heavenly law blood oath. The punishment for violating the oath was very severe. Seeing Yi Fei's actions, Fei Hai was scared out of his wits. In the end, his life was more important. He finally corrected his attitude and quickly begged for mercy. "Young master, please spare my life. I, Fei Hai, have always been loyal to you. I have never betrayed you." "Humph, you didn't betray me, so why did the school of legalism send you to kill me?" Yi Fei sneered. Through the reaction of the blood bead, he knew that Fei Hai was telling the truth. He reluctantly kept the blood bead. Anyway, the blood bead was in his hands. As long as he willed it, even a half-sovereign would die instantly. Similarly bound by the oath, Fei Hai no longer dared to have any enmity towards Yi Fei. He transmitted his voice to Yi Fei honestly. "Young master, you've made me suffer. Do you know that the Lingji doll you obtained was something the family had spent a lot of effort to use to prolong the ancestor's life? In the end, you actually refined her." When the family head found out about this, he was incomparably furious. "He specially sent me to investigate this matter and casually bring your head back with me." "So the school of legalism didn't discover my identity? They sent you because they thought I refined Xiao Chao?" Yi Fei came to a realization. He had guessed correctly. The school of legalism was so desperate to capture Xiao Chao all over the world in order to prolong the life of a certain old monster. Later on, for some reason, they made a wrong judgment and refined Xiao Chao. That was why they angrily sent out a half-sovereign to kill him. Perhaps this is a good chance to stall for time. Understanding that the school of legalism had not discovered his identity and had only come to vent their anger, Yi Fei immediately began to think. He planned to use Fei Hai to screw over the school of legalism again. During this time, what he feared the most was the school of legalism discovering his identity and taking revenge on a large scale. The strength of a quasi-emperor clan was already comparable to the Sacred Academy. He was confident that he could face off against the powerful enemies of the Sacred Academy, but he was not confident that he could face the full revenge of a quasi-emperor clan. As a result, hiding his identity and gaining more time to grow was extremely important. Yi Fei estimated that he would have to undergo the Martial King tribulation at the very least and reach the level of Martial King. Only then would he have the confidence to stand up to the school of legalism. If the school of legalism discovered his identity before that, not only would he be killed by the quasi-emperors of the school of legalism, but even Xiao Chao would be captured and refined into a life-extending pill. "I definitely won't allow something like that to happen." After thinking quickly, Yi Fei quickly made a decision. He ordered Fei Hai, "Fei Hai, what does the school of legalism plan to do with the martial god space?" "Young master, the patriarch is afraid that you are a remnant of the Hall of Life and Death, and that you have colluded with a certain clan. Currently, the entire power of the family is investigating this matter," Fei Hai said reluctantly. After all, he was also a member of the school of legalism, yet he had somehow become a traitor. Moreover, he had brought his own men with him. Through his words, Yi Fei immediately discovered an important piece of information. He asked in surprise, "What did you just say?" "The school of legalism is afraid of the remnant of the Hall of Life and Death?" In the burial land of gods, Yi Fei had almost been possessed by the undying martial emperor. However, he had also indirectly obtained the undying martial emperor's ultimate technique and comprehended the mysteries of life and death. Hearing that the school of legalism was afraid of the Hall of Life and Death, he was naturally curious. Fei Hai was even more shocked. "Young master, aren't you from the Hall of Life and Death? Tens of thousands of years ago, the Hall of Life and Death was the greatest faction in the Central Plains. All the quasi-emperor clans in the Central Plains had submitted to the Hall of Life and Death. However, when the Hall of Life and Death declined, most of the clans banded together and destroyed the Hall of Life and Death, including our school of legalism. Later, the Patriarch found out that the martial arts you used in the martial god space were the martial arts of the Hall of Life and Death. Therefore, the Patriarch is worried that the Hall of Life and Death might rise from the ashes. He is currently investigating this matter with all his might, and did not suspect you. Fei spoke in great detail. Yi Fei was also very shocked when he heard this. The Hall of Life and Death was once the greatest faction in the Central Plains? Moreover, all the quasi-emperor clans had submitted to it? Later on, these quasi-emperor clans had betrayed the Hall of Life and Death and worked together to destroy it? No wonder the school of legalism was so worried when they heard that the Hall of Life and Death might rise from the ashes. Immediately, Yi Fei thought of a good idea to conceal his identity and mislead the school of legalism. Wasn't the school of legalism worried that the Hall of Life and Death would rise from the ashes? Then, he might as well create a Hall of Life and let the school of legalism be suspicious. Fei, I don't care what method you use, but you must spread the news and make the school of legalism believe that the Hall of Life and Death still exists, and I am the mysterious young master of the Hall of Life and Death. I am currently hiding in a certain clan. Yi Fei rubbed his chin and ordered telepathically. It was as if he didn't feel any pain when he was standing there and doing nothing. Fei's vision darkened when he heard this, and he almost fainted from anger. It was bad enough that Yi Fei had tricked him into becoming a cripple, but now he wanted to trick him into losing his life. Young master, you should just kill me. How can I make the Patriarch believe this without any evidence? If the Patriarch discovers that I have betrayed the school of legalism, I will die without a burial place. Yi Fei could not help but feel a headache when he heard this. Indeed, if he wanted to mislead the school of legalism, it was very easy for smart people to see through the rumors. Without any evidence, why would the school of legalism believe this rumor? Chapter 1172. Corpse Puppets. This time, Fei didn't hesitate and quickly said, "The Hall of Life and Death is most famous for its assassination techniques, life and death energy, and corpse puppets." Then, he thought of something and said in surprise, "Young master, I've thought of a way." Yi Fei's spirit was shaken. He thought to himself that taking Fei as a half-step emperor as a follower was the right choice. He was reliable at crucial moments. Even though he was extremely unwilling to help Yi Fei, his life was in Yi Fei's hands. If something happened to Yi Fei, Fei would also be finished. In order to save his life, Fei naturally had to think of 1,000 ways to help Yi Fei hide his identity. Needless to say, after Yi Fei's reminder, Fei really thought of a good idea to help Yi Fei hide his identity. That was to help Yi Fei refine corpse puppets and then casually throw them in the territory of an aristocratic family. This way, as long as the legalism family investigated, they wouldn't suspect Yi Fei. This is a good idea. Fei, go ahead and do it. After Yi Fei heard this, he nodded in agreement without even thinking. As long as he could hide it from the legalism family, he would let the traitor Fei do it. Fei had a stomach full of anger, but he had to force a smile and patiently explain to Yi Fei, "Young master, this won't do. Although I know the method to refine corpse puppets, I have no way to refine them. There are 2 conditions to refine corpse puppets in the Hall of Life and Death. First, the corpse of a martial arts expert, preferably a recently deceased martial saint. Second, the corpse must be nourished by the life and death energy of the Hall of Life and Death. Only then can it be refined into a true corpse puppet. Our legalism family is unable to grasp the life and death energy. We clearly have many powerful martial arts in the Hall of Life and Death, but we can't practice them. We can only use them as reference for cultivation." Yi Fei was very surprised. The martial arts in the Hall of Life and Death required the life and death energy to be successfully cultivated. No wonder he felt that the life and death boxing competition was lacking something. Thinking about it, what he lacked was the life energy of the life energy of the life energy. Fae, if I only have the power of death, I wonder if I can be refined into a corpse puppet? Yifei asked in a deep voice. That's possible. Either life energy or death energy can be used to refine corpse puppet. Young master, look, this is the method to refine corpse puppet. Fae was pleasantly surprised. Yifei could actually control the power of death. If someone told him that Yifei wasn't a remnant of the Hall of Life and Death, he wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death. He reckoned that Yifei's identity as a person abandoned by the heavens could be a cover. Fae couldn't help but admire his own deductive abilities. But he didn't know that it was precisely because he was overthinking things that he had been fooled by Yifei. Very happily, Fae used his divine sense to seal the corpse puppet refining technique that he had comprehended in a jade stone before handing it over to Yifei. In the end, time was of the essence. Yifei immediately awakened his undying sword soul, infinitely increasing his perception. It only took him an hour to completely comprehend the refining method of the corpse puppet. He inwardly admired the Hall of Life and Death's refining method. It was simply as terrifying as bringing the dead back to life. Normally, to refine a corpse puppet, Yifei would need to find the corpse of a martial sage or above who had died less than 7 days ago. Then, he would use a secret technique to bring the corpse back to life. After the corpse was revived, not only would it retain the corpse's complete martial technique memories, but it would also retain the cultivation of the corpse when it was alive. The stronger the corpse's cultivation, the stronger the corpse puppet would be. It was said that when the Hall of Life and Death was at its peak, they had refined 10 martial emperor corpse puppets. Their might shook the central province and caused all the noble clans to submit. However, the Hall of Life and Death was not satisfied with this. They actually ordered these quasi-emperor noble clans to hand over all the relatives of martial sages and above who died to them to be refined into corpse puppets. Without a doubt, this greatly angered all the quasi-emperor noble clans. No one wanted their relatives to be refined into corpse puppets after they died. Hence, they all feigned compliance. In the end, they worked together and used the most bloody method to destroy the Hall of Life and Death. This was also the reason why the legalists were so nervous when they discovered that Yifei knew the Hall of Life and Death's martial technique. They were afraid that the Hall of Life and Death would rise from the ashes and seek revenge. After knowing this, Yifei gained more confidence in using corpse puppets to mislead the legalists. However, he was vexed. He had learned the method to refine corpse puppets, but where was he supposed to find martial sage corpses? This is still somewhat difficult. Yifei rubbed his chin, feeling somewhat vexed. Fae observed Yifei's expression and immediately understood. He smiled and said, "Young master, are you worried about the candidate for corpse puppets? Actually, this is easy. Isn't there already one in front of us? Are you talking about Qiu Mingshan? After all, we are of the same sect. This isn't too good. Killing people was fine, but refining them into corpse puppets was too vicious." Yifei was repulsed by this. However, while he was repulsed, Fae was not. After all, if the legalists did not hide Yifei's identity well, once they found out, Fae would definitely be in trouble. Knowing that Yifei was not easy to deal with, Fae immediately revealed a vicious expression. "Young master, leave this matter to me. Actually, even if I don't kill him, this Qiu Mingshan is already a dead man. Before bringing me into the sacred court, Cui Yongxian tricked him into eating a poison pill. Once I complete my mission, I'll kill him to silence him." There's such a thing? Could Cui Yongxian be from the legalists as well? Yifei said in shock. Of course. He is a pawn that our legalists placed in the sacred court. It is not just the true martial sacred court. The other sacred courts also have many quasi-emperor clans as pawns. The divine martial sacred court is completely controlled by the Lu clan, Fa Ihai said another shocking thing. These words undoubtedly had a huge impact on Yi Fei. The 4 sacred courts were actually all under the control of quasi-emperor clans. From this, one could see how strong these quasi-emperor clans were. However, Yi Fei wondered if the sacred court had discovered this. Save me! A terrified cry for help interrupted Yi Fei's thoughts. Even though Yi Fei had been talking with Fa Ihai for almost 2 hours, Qiu Mingshan had not noticed this. It was not that Qiu Mingshan was careless. Rather, there were too many vicious beasts surrounding him. Ever since Yi Fei and Fa Ihai ran away, Qiu Mingshan, who was alone, had been surrounded by the vicious beasts. At first, Qiu Mingshan could still rely on his own strength to barely hold on. However, after enduring for 2 hours, Fa Ihai did not kill Yi Fei or come back to rescue him. Qiu Mingshan immediately became anxious and could only cry for help. This caused Fa Ihai and Yi Fei's expressions to change at the same time. Fa Ihai was afraid that Qiu Mingshan's cry for help would alert the martial monarchs of the sacred court. Yi Fei was also worried that Qiu Mingshan would be torn apart by the vicious beasts. Where would he find such a good material for a corpse puppet? Save him. Don't let him die too miserably, Yi Fei said in a deep voice. He knew that if he did not make a move, Qiu Mingshan would definitely be torn apart by the vicious beast. At the same time, in order to not arouse Qiu Mingshan's suspicions, Yi Fei decisively wiped the blood on his face and pretended to be dispirited. Then, he let Fa Ihai grab him and rushed towards the vicious beasts in the distance. Cram! Fa Ihai was indeed very strong. With one hand, he held the captive Yi Fei, and with the other, he raised the bloodline fate wheel, which was unique to the legalists. He ruthlessly smashed it towards the ferocious beast. More than 10 ferocious beasts were smashed into meat paste and died on the ground. However, Yi Fei discovered that Fa Ihai's fate wheel did not have a powerful bloodline aura like Fa Wudao's. It seems that although Fa Ihai has a fate wheel, he has not awakened his bloodline. That's why he is at the bottom of the half-emperors in the legalists. Chapter 1173. Everything was ready. Obviously, in a quasi-emperor family, bloodline determined everything. Those with a special bloodline would have status. Those without a bloodline would only be at the bottom of the hierarchy, working like a horse for the family. However, even so, Fa Ihai was still a half-emperor. His strength was still terrifying. As he waved his fate wheel, a large number of vicious beasts died under his fate wheel. Seeing that Fa Ihai was finally willing to make a move, Qiu Mingshan, whose face was filled with despair, suddenly became spirited. He used his saber to cut off the Wolf King's neck with all his might. Roar! As the strongest Wolf King was killed, the remaining nether skeletal wolves finally began to collapse. At the same time, without the influence of the pink mist, the other vicious beasts gradually recovered from their berserk state. They sensed Fa Ihai's aura. All the vicious beasts that were still alive let out unwilling roars and fled back into the forest. After all, the vicious beasts that had broken through to the martial saint realm were very intelligent. Naturally, they wouldn't stay and be killed by a half-emperor. Senior, thank you, thank you. If it weren't for you, I, Qiu Mingshan, would have been devoured by those vicious beasts. Qiu Mingshan rushed to Fa Ihai's side. Without saying anything, he first knelt down, his forehead touching the ground and his buttocks sticking out. Even though he knew that this person was despicable, Yi Fei couldn't help but sigh. Qiu Mingshan, are you still a disciple of the sacred court? Shut up. Qiu Mingshan jumped up in anger. If it weren't for Yi Fei, how could he, an Earth-stage genius, be reduced to such a state? Seeing that Yi Fei had been caught by Fa Ihai and was unable to resist, a trace of malevolence quickly appeared on Qiu Mingshan's face. Yi Fei, you useless person abandoned by the heavens. You didn't expect to fall to such a state, did you? Didn't you say that you wanted to flatten the sacred court? Today I will flatten you first. No, flatten you is too easy for you. I will cut off your limbs and destroy your primordial spirit, turning you into a complete waste. Qiu Mingshan held his blood-dripping battle blade. Seeing that Fei Hai had no intention of stopping him, he was overjoyed. He raised his battle blade and was about to torture Yi Fei. Yi Fei couldn't help but sigh in response to this. Truly, the evils brought upon themselves are the hardest to bear. Earlier, I couldn't bear to refine you into a corpse puppet. Now that I think about it, I was too naive. Corpse puppet, what do you mean? No, your aura. Qiu Mingshan was an Earth stage genius after all. Even though he was a little weak, his reaction was very fast. He could sense that Yi Fei's aura was as strong as when he was not injured, even if they didn't understand what was going on. Qiu Mingshan still wanted to increase the distance between him and Yi Fei with his fastest speed. However, his plan did not succeed. Fei Hai had already formed a special seal with his hands and snapped his fingers. This finger snap immediately became Qiu Mingshan's death sentence. His origin soul exploded with a bang. His eyes lit up and he turned to look at Fei Hai with a face full of shock. Senior, you guys, that is a poison pill. Bang! With intense resentment and unwillingness, Qiu Mingshan fell to the ground and breathed his last. Yi Fei's hair stood on end when he saw this. Even a 7th-level martial saint could be instantly poisoned to death. What kind of poison pill did Cui Yongxian give Qiu Mingshan? Young master, that is the explosive yuan pill. It can cause the origin soul of the person who consumes it to explode. At the same time, it can also cause the origin soul of a cultivator to instantly collapse and die an unnatural death. This kind of pill was originally developed by the Hall of Life and Death. It is used to silence people. Fei Hai walked over and brought Qiu Mingshan's corpse along with him. Regarding this, Yi Fei could only smile bitterly. He understood that even if he didn't kill Qiu Mingshan, Cui Yongxian would kill Qiu Mingshan to silence him. However, Cui Yongxuan's poison pill had helped him greatly. The conditions for refining a corpse puppet had all been met. It was also time to start refining a corpse puppet. Fei Hai, leave the sacred court first and wait for my news. Also, organize a few legalist martial arts. After I refine a corpse puppet, you can give these martial arts to him. After that, how to let the legalists discover the corpse puppet is your problem. Don't worry, young master. This subordinate will definitely handle this matter well. Fei Hai agreed without hesitation. After all, only by helping Yi Fei hide his identity would he not lose his life. Good. You can leave first. After I refine a corpse puppet, I will contact you. Yi Fei nodded with satisfaction. He didn't care if Fei Hai was sincere or not. As long as this person's blood bead was in his hands, he wouldn't be worried that Fei Hai would betray him. After that, Yi Fei endured the discomfort in his heart and put Qiu Mingshan's corpse into a clean spatial belt. Refining a corpse puppet wasn't something that could be done in a day or two. It required many steps. Raising a corpse also required a long period of time. He didn't immediately leave the Bloodshed Valley. Instead, he planned to follow his original plan and hunt down an 8th-level martial saint vicious beasts to pass the sacred court's examination. Around dawn, outside a cave filled with skeletons, Yi Fei carried an 8-horned blood python and calmly walked out of the Bloodshed Valley. No wonder the sacred court kept so many vicious beasts in the Bloodshed Valley. These vicious beasts are either bloodthirsty or violent by nature. If they were released, they would only harm the common people. It's better to keep them here and let the disciples train. Rumble. Different from the Death Valley, the Bloodshed Valley during the day was a place where the disciples of the sacred court settled their grudges and killed people for treasures. There were figures fighting everywhere. However, at this moment, no one dared to provoke Yi Fei. This was because Yi Fei had used a unique treasure mask to transform into Qiu Mingshan's appearance. As an expert ranked 15th in the Earth class, Qiu Mingshan had a certain reputation in the sacred court. Of course, no disciple dared to provoke him. Yi Fei also purposely let these people see Qiu Mingshan walking out of the Bloodshed Valley safely. This way, even if someone found that Qiu Mingshan was missing, they wouldn't suspect him. After walking out of the Bloodshed Valley and making Xiao Chao confirm that no one was following them, Yi Fei returned to his original appearance and rushed back to his mountain peak at an even faster speed. Yi Fei, why are you only back now? On the mountain peak, Shangluo had already finished the examination and returned in advance. Relying on the dozens of pseudo-emperor weapons she carried with her, she believed that no one would dare to find trouble with the rich and overbearing young miss. Shangluo, please help me register. Also, I will be in seclusion for a period of time. No matter what, don't disturb me. After throwing the 8-horned dragon python he killed, Yi Fei rushed back to his cave residence in a hurry. Xia Jun and the others who wanted to come over and greet him were baffled. Seclusion? Are you kidding me? The Earth class ranking battle is about to start and he is going to seclusion again? Shangluo was stunned. Could it be that Big Brother has a new understanding and is going to seclusion to comprehend a new profound? Xia Jun and Guo Wang were also stunned. The stimulated Lin Tianjiao didn't say anything and went back to his cave residence to cultivate diligently. After all, Lin Tianjiao also signed up to participate in the Earth class ranking battle. When he returned to the cave, he threw the dragon turtle out to block the entrance of the cave, preventing anyone from entering. After thinking about it, Yi Fei instructed Xiao Chao to keep an eye on him at all times to see if there was any divine sense monitoring him. Then, Yi Fei took out Qiu Mingshan's corpse and threw it into a spiritual pool with rich spiritual energy in the cave. Xiao Chao ran to the side and gnawed on a spiritual stone, curiously watching Yi Fei's every move. He didn't understand why Yi Fei brought back a dead person. But soon, Xiao Chao's eyes widened. Yi Fei put Qiu Mingshan on the ground and transferred a large amount of immortal energy into his body. Finally, he threw a life and death talisman into Qiu Mingshan's body. Qiu Mingshan, who was supposed to be dead, suddenly sat up cross-legged and opened his eyes. He glared at Yi Fei with great resentment. Cui Yongxian, you tricked me into eating a poisonous pill. I won't let you off even if I become a ghost. Brother Qiu, my condolences. You are already dead. But I will avenge you when I have time. Now I only have one condition. What condition? Qiu Mingshan's voice was gloomy. I want you to become my corpse puppet. Yi Fei's tone was gloomy. Then, he chanted a series of strange words. Chapter 1174. Corpse official. Hearing this language, Qiu Mingshan's eerie aura gradually calmed down. He also sat down cross-legged and started an intense debate with Yi Fei using the same eerie language. However, the tone of the debate was similar to the screams of evil spirits. It was sharp, ear-piercing, eerie and terrifying. Xiao Chao stood at the side and listened for a while before he felt uncomfortable all over. He quickly covered his ears and hid beside the dragon turtle. He pulled the dragon turtle's tail and played a game of tug-of-war with the dragon turtle. Yi Fei was the only one who seemed to be enjoying it. He kept roaring at Qiu Mingshan with a creepy smile. Sometimes, he would let out some kind of chilling syllable, which made the dragon turtle feel a chill down its spine. However, when Qiu Mingshan heard these syllables, it was as if he heard some funny joke. He laughed and waved his hands and legs. In the end, Yi Fei's voice completely suppressed Qiu Mingshan's voice. This intense debate between the dead ended with Yi Fei's victory. On the third day, Qiu Mingshan finally relented. The voice that came out of his mouth was no longer his voice. Instead, it was an old and strange sigh. Alright, you win. I didn't expect the Hall of Life and Death to still have a successor in this world. What a surprise, what a surprise! Even the netherworld knows about the Hall of Life and Death? Yi Fei was shocked. He suddenly had a feeling that he might have broken some taboo by refining a corpse puppet. Qiu Mingshan didn't answer. His body became lifeless and was at the mercy of Yi Fei. Although he was full of doubts, he couldn't back down now since he had already done it. Yi Fei could only bite the bullet. He cut his finger and dripped his life essence blood. However, before the blood fell to the ground, he quickly made a hand seal. The blood that dripped out turned into bloody and strange symbols. These symbols twisted and turned as if they were alive. They kept drilling into Qiu Mingshan's body. At this moment, Qiu Mingshan suddenly opened his eyes and said in a low voice, "Please teach me. Fellow Taoist, listen well. I'm going to teach you the death scripture. When the body dies, the physical body doesn't die. When the soul is destroyed, the martial arts don't die." Yi Fei said in a low voice. As he imparted the Tao, he also sent a large amount of immortal energy into Qiu Mingshan's body. As he spoke, he had Qiu Mingshan repeatedly cultivate according to the Life and Death Sutra recorded on the corpse puppet. After an unknown number of days, even Yi Fei, who had 8 yuan divinities supporting him, felt a little tired. Then, a rumbling sound came from Qiu Mingshan's body. His shattered primordial spirit reformed, and he regained the cultivation of a 7th-level martial sacred. The corpse puppet is complete. Yi Fei heaved a sigh of relief. The most important step in refining a corpse puppet was to reconstruct the primordial spirit. As long as this step was accomplished, the refining of the corpse puppet would be halfway done. The remaining half was to make the corpse puppet obey his orders. Immediately, Yi Fei formed even more complicated seals. Since it was his first time refining, he wasn't very familiar with it. He could only condense the seals step by step, which naturally wasted a lot of time. Unknowingly, the ranking battle of the Sacred Academy had begun. Lin Tianjiao and Shangluo had adjusted themselves to their best state, preparing for the battle. Only Yi Fei's cave residence remained closed. Yi Fei signed up. He won't not participate, right? Guowang, go and inform him, Shangluo said. I'm not going. That turtle will kill people. Guowang had already gone to warn Yi Fei, but the dragon turtle guarding the door remembered Yi Fei's words and didn't allow anyone to approach. As soon as someone approached, it would spit out a mouthful of dragon flames, which almost killed Guowang. Seeing Guowang in such a miserable state, Xia Jun and the others were even less willing to run over and let the dragon turtle spit on them. In the end, Shangluo said, "Forget it. If he doesn't participate this time, it's my turn to take first place." While speaking, Shangluo lined up the dozens of quasi-emperor weapons she carried with her in a row. She was very distressed about whether she should use 1, 2, or just throw them all out in the battle later. Seeing this, Xia Jun and the others shuddered. With so many quasi-emperor weapons thrown out, even a heaven disciple would be smashed to death, let alone an earth disciple. However, Xia Jun and the little fatty were Shangluo's cheerleaders, so they had to go and cheer for the young Mississippi. Lin Tianjiao had to participate in the ranking battle of the mortal rank, so Guowang was the only one left. He looked distressed as he waited for Yi Fei to come out of seclusion. In the cave residence, Yi Fei had completely forgotten that today was the day of the ranking battle of the Sacred Academy. The steps of refining a corpse puppet were too complicated, and he couldn't make a single mistake. Yi Fei naturally concentrated all his strength and carefully injected all the seals into the corpse puppet's body. Boom! When the last seal was injected into the corpse puppet's forehead, Qiu Mingshan, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly seemed to come alive. He stood up very agilely and numbly cupped his fists at Yi Fei. "Tao brother, please." Yi Fei didn't dare to delay and hurriedly stood up and cupped his fists as well. "Tao brother, please." Qiu Mingshan said again, "Tao brother, please tell me what you need." Well said. As the saying goes, Tao brother dies but not me. From now on, Tao brother, please pretend to be the young master of the Hall of Life and Death to attract the attention of the legalists and quasi-emperor clans and buy me some time. Yi Fei cupped his fists again. Qiu Mingshan stood up straight and said with determination, Tao brother, you're too polite. Your business is my business. I, Qiu Mingshan, am willing to die 1,000 times. No, Tao brother, you can't use Qiu Mingshan's identity anymore. You won't be able to help me that way and will only bring trouble to me. You have to change your identity, Yi Fei said in a deep voice. Qiu Mingshan was taken aback and then smiled. That's easy. I can sense that Tao brother has a mask that can merge with my physical body and completely change my appearance. It's absolutely flawless. Mask? Tao brother, are you talking about my unique treasure mask? Yi Fei's heart skipped a beat. He took out the unique treasure mask that had helped him achieve many miraculous feats and even fooled a half-emperor. That's right. It's an item of our corpse realm. Today, it'll help me gain a new life. Shi Xiao, who had abandoned his identity, laughed loudly and directly took the mask and covered his face. Something miraculous happened. The mask didn't change Shi Xiao's appearance but directly merged with him. I have a feeling that this mask was made for me, Shi Xiao said thoughtfully. Could this face also be a treasure of the Hall of Life and Death? Yi Fei increasingly felt that the Hall of Life and Death was unusual. Shi Xiao. That old voice. But before he could think further, Shi Xiao, who had completely changed his appearance and turned into a different person, suddenly knelt down on one knee. Tao brother, I have an identity now. Unfortunately, I don't have a name. Please give me a name. Yi Fei put away the doubts in his heart and pondered for a while. Tao brother, you and I were enemies when we were alive. After you died, you became my Shi Xiao. From now on, you'll be called Shi Xiao. Shi Xiao, a good name. I was originally a dead man, but now I'm your servant. From now on, I'm the corpse minister. Many thanks for the name, fellow Taoist. The corpse minister clasped his hands and looked at Yi Fei with a kind gaze. Chapter 1175. Ranking Battle Gua Wang. Don't go out for a while after I go down the mountain. Just stay in my cave and wait for me to come back. The resurrected corpse official couldn't be put into the space belt, so Yi Fei thought of a way to let Gua Wang give him the identity medallion and then let the corpse official change into Gua Wang's appearance. This way they could leave the Sacred Institute without anyone noticing. To prevent any accidents, Yi Fei decided to personally send the corpse official out of the Sacred Institute. Of course, the corpse official wouldn't go against Yi Fei's order. After fusing with the treasure mask, the corpse official's appearance could change at any time, and completely. This was the scariest thing about the corpse officials of the Life and Death Palace. They could change into any appearance and blend into the enemy's camp. They could spy for information or assassinate people who were unfavorable to the Life and Death Palace. It was impossible to guard against them. When Gua Wang saw the corpse official that had changed into his appearance, he was stunned. He gave the identity medallion to the corpse official in a daze, feeling that he had forgotten something. When Yi Fei went down the mountain, Gua Wang cried out regretfully, "Oh no, I forgot to tell young Master Yi that the earth-ranking battle has begun." Unfortunately, since the corpse official had turned into Gua Wang and followed Yi Fei down the mountain, Gua Wang couldn't run out and tell Yi Fei the news. All of his energy was focused on refining the corpse official, so Yi Fei had forgotten that there was still a very important Sacred Institute examination waiting for him. At the Sacred Institute, a huge training field had been set up. Many half-emperor instructors and even martial emperors were paying close attention to this ranking battle. On the side of the human-ranked disciples, the sky was already turned upside down. Lin Tianjiao suppressed the crowd and defeated many strong opponents, which also attracted the attention of some instructors. On the side of the earth-ranked disciples, Shang Luo was also unstoppable, defeating many earth-ranked geniuses in succession. Of course, if she relied on her half-emperor weapons, ordinary Earth-rank disciples wouldn't be a match for this young lady. Bang! Another unlucky Earth-ranked disciple screamed as he was smashed out of the arena by Shang Luo's 3 pseudo-emperor weapons. This time, even the face of the half-emperor instructor in charge of the referee twitched violently. He helplessly announced, "Shang Luo wins the 28th match. Young lady, well done. Sister Fairy is invincible." Little Fatty June's face was red. While enduring the murderous gazes of the defeated disciples, he braced himself and cheered for Shang Luo. Many martial emperors who were secretly paying attention to the battle. But she relied on her wealth's power. You can't say that. Being rich is also a kind of strength. If this girl can make the merchant union stand on our side, we will let her do as she pleases even if she is a heaven rank, let alone an earth rank. Another martial emperor said. His words gained the approval of some of the other martial emperors. However, there were also strict martial emperors who retorted, "We can let her do as she pleases in the top 20 earth rank. But the top 10 must depend on their own abilities. Pass down the order. Weapons are not allowed in the top 10 battles. Let's see what this girl can do." What? If they don't use weapons, won't the strength of many people be greatly reduced? That's the only way to force this girl to reveal her true strength. I want to see if the Shang clan's genius can take first place in this earth rank battle. There were also martial emperors who thought highly of Shang Luo. Another martial emperor immediately retorted with a smile, "The first place this time will probably belong to Zhou Bai. No one in the earth rank is his match." As he spoke, the instructor in charge of the arena read out the name list for the next round. Round 29, Yi Fei vs. Zhou Bai. Boom! As soon as the referee finished speaking, there was an uproar among the spectating disciples. Who was the most popular disciple in the Sacred Academy now? Of course, it was Yi Fei. He had defeated everyone in the human rank and entered the earth rank. Before the battle began, many people were betting on whether Yi Fei could make it into the top 10 in the ranking battle. However, no one had expected that Yi Fei would encounter the top genius of the earth rank, Zhou Bai, as soon as the ranking battle began. This is bad. It's Big Brother's turn now. But he's not here yet. Xia Jun and the little fatty were anxious. Shang Luo also had a strange expression on her face. Did that guy forget about the ranking battle? Xia Jun, hurry up and contact Guo Wang and ask him what's going on. I'll go over and try to buy some time for Yi Fei. Okay, I'll send a message to Guo Wang. Xia Jun took out a sound-transmitting charm. Shang Luo hurriedly jumped into the arena. Her action surprised the referee. "Shang Luo, why are you here again?" "Mentor, here's the thing. Yi Fei has something to do and might be a little late. He asked me to ask for a leave of absence," Shang Luo said casually. Her words made the disciples who were looking forward to the battle between Yi Fei and Zhou Bai speechless. Was there a mistake? Not only was he late for the ranking battle, he even asked for a leave of absence? The mentor in charge of the referee's impression of Yi Fei immediately fell to the bottom. He said angrily, "No, the ranking battle has already begun. If he's late, he'll forfeit." Forfeit? How can that be? Shang Luo still wanted to plead for leniency. However, the pseudo-emperor mentor refused to budge. Shang Luo could only ask Zhou Bai, "Zhou Bai, what about you? Do you want to wait for Yi Fei?" "There's no need to wait. He said that he would flatten the Sacred Institute, but now he's looking for an excuse and doesn't dare to fight with me. A coward like him isn't worth my time." Zhou Bai was very disappointed. He didn't believe that Yi Fei would be late. After all, the ranking battle of the Sacred Institute concerned the status of the disciples in the Sacred Institute. Even he, the top genius of the Earth stage, didn't dare to be careless. Who would dare to be late? If he was late, there was only one reason. His opponent knew that he wasn't a match for him, so he took the initiative to avoid the battle. Humph, that Yi Fei was so arrogant. I thought he had some ability, but in the end, he didn't even have the courage to fight with me. What a waste of my time, Zhou Bai said sarcastically before leaving the arena. He looked down on people like Yi Fei from the bottom of his heart. After all, people who were abandoned by the heavens were basically useless in martial arts. As the top genius of the Earth stage, why would he care about someone with a useless body? Moreover, Yi Fei, who had a useless body, actually dared to say that he would flatten the Sacred Institute. At the same time, Zhou Bai's words resonated with many disciples. They also didn't believe that someone would be late for a ranking battle that concerned their status. Yi Fei's tardiness must be an excuse. He's afraid of losing to Zhou Bai. He's embarrassing himself. Humph, who told him to boast so shamelessly? How dare he say that he would flatten the Sacred Institute? If he loses a battle, he won't be able to clean up the mess. He might as well use the excuse of being late to avoid a battle with an expert and destroy his undefeated reputation. Chapter 1176. Cowardly Turtle, Don't Talk Nonsense. My big brother is not avoiding the battle. He's just in seclusion and doesn't know that the ranking battle has already begun. Hearing these people's curses, Xia Jun and Little Fatty immediately retaliated and defended Yi Fei. However, there were only two of them. Since the news of Yi Fei flattening the Holy Court had spread, many Earth Stage disciples were very unhappy with Yi Fei. A few of the top 10 Earth Stage disciples even publicly announced that they would teach Yi Fei a lesson in this ranking battle. They would let this heaven-abandoned trash know the immensity of heaven and earth. At this moment, they were obviously making a fuss about Yi Fei being late. Angry curses and sarcastic remarks were everywhere. Not only did no one believe Xia Jun's words, many of them even cursed more and more harshly. What? He's in seclusion and lost track of time? Can you please find a better excuse? Keep making up stories. Don't think that we don't know that Yi Fei deliberately avoided the battle because he was afraid that his undefeated legend would be broken. What legend? I think that's just bullshit. What heaven leaderboard's number 1? He's so scared that he doesn't even dare to show his face when he meets our senior brother Zhou. Cowardly as a mouse, cowardly turtle. Heaven-abandoned trash, true to his name. In the end, Xia Jun and Little Fatty were still unable to convince the hundreds of people present. No matter how they explained, no one would believe them. Shangluo was also very angry. Don't talk to them anymore. If you want them to shut up, just get Yi Fei here. I'll go back now and drag him out of the cave abode. Shangluo, this won't do. If you leave, what if it's your turn to participate in the ranking battle? Xia Jun was more rational. However, Shang Luo said angrily, why not? This fairy has opened a bet and bet heavily on him. I bet that he will enter the top 3. When I do business, I have never lost money. What? Business? Xia Jun and the chubby boy were both stunned. They finally understood why Shangluo was so anxious about Yi Fei not participating in the match. After all this time, it turned out that the person behind the scenes who was betting on the ranking match was right in front of them. Xia Jun was not the only one who was speechless. Even Zhou Xiaoyu, who was standing not far away, was speechless. However, she was the one who invited Yi Fei to join the Saint Academy. If Yi Fei became known as a coward, her prestige would be damaged. Forget it. You guys stay here. I'll go over and see what's going on with Yi Fei. After Zhou Xiaoyu finished speaking, she left the martial arts practice field and rushed towards Yi Fei's spirit mountain. Her speed was very fast. By the time Xia Jun reacted, it was already too late to stop her. Xia Jun immediately pulled a long face and slapped himself in the face. It's over. Why did I say that Big Brother is in closed-door training? I have a feeling that if Instructor Zhou goes up the mountain, there will be a big problem. After all, Xia Jun had been following Yi Fei for the longest time. He was no longer a martial arts rookie. He was very smart and alert. In particular, Yi Fei came back in a hurry. He didn't even care about the ranking match and immediately went into closed-door training. This made Xia Jun vaguely feel that the situation was very serious. No, I have to inform Big Brother about this. Chubby, quickly send a message to Big Brother. I'll think of a way to delay Instructor Zhou on the way. After saying this, Xia Jun hurriedly chased after Zhou Xiaoyu. The chubby boy immediately took out a voice-transmitting charm and sent a message to Yi Fei and Gua Wang at the same time, explaining the situation. Fortunately, Xia Jun was alert enough to think of this. Otherwise, when Zhou Xiaoyu went up the spiritual mountain and found Gua Wang in the cave residence while Yi Fei took Gua Wang out of the Saint Academy at the same time, the Saint Academy would immediately notice the problem. The time that Xia Jun bought for Zhou Xiaoyu was very precious. However, Yi Fei didn't know that there were already uninvited guests who wanted to enter his mountain to look for his whereabouts. According to the place that he and Fei had agreed on, Yi Fei took the corpse official that had turned into Gua Wang and walked towards the exit of the Saint Academy unhurriedly. Yi Fei also completely forgot that today was the day of the ranking match. However, at the entrance, the instructor in charge of the inspection didn't forget. After checking Gua Wang's identity, the instructor was about to let them go when he suddenly found that Yi Fei, an Earth Stage disciple, also wanted to go out. He looked very puzzled. You're an Earth Stage disciple. Isn't today the day of the ranking match? Why are you going out now? Are you going to be eliminated so soon? The instructor was a little puzzled. Although Yi Fei was abandoned by the heavens, his reputation as the first on the heaven list was so well known that even the instructor in charge of the inspection had heard of him. Hearing the instructor's words, Yi Fei was, of course, shocked. Then he patted his head and said, "Oh no, I completely forgot about this. Gua Wang, you go out first and look for those spiritual herbs. If you can't find them, we'll figure it out later." "Young Master Yi, don't worry. I'll definitely find those spiritual herbs." There were no flaws in the corpse official's words and actions. The instructor in charge of the inspection also noticed that the instructor in charge of the inspection didn't notice anything strange. He was speechless that Yi Fei actually forgot about such an important matter as the ranking match. He couldn't help but lecture him. "Yi Fei, what's wrong with you? The ranking match of the Sacred Academy is related to your position in the Sacred Academy. How can you miss it? Hurry back now and you can still make up for it. Oh right, even if you miss the match, you can still challenge the top 10 disciples. Once you succeed, you'll also receive a corresponding reward." The instructor in charge of the inspection was kind-hearted and took the initiative to remind Yi Fei. Of course, while the two were talking, the corpse official was also very alert and quickly left the martial god space of the Sacred Academy to meet up with Fei, who was waiting outside. According to Yi Fei's orders, the corpse official would be brought to the territory of a quasi-emperor family by Fei, and then wait for an opportunity to stir up trouble and spread rumors that the Hall of Life and Death had risen from the ashes. After seeing that the corpse official that he had refined had successfully passed the test, Yi Fei breathed a sigh of relief. Then, he rushed to the martial arts practice field of the ranking match as fast as he could. Halfway there, Yi Fei received a voice-transmitting talisman from the little fatty, and learned that Zhou Xiaoyu had actually personally gone to the mountain peak to look for him. Fortunately, Xia Jun was there to help him stall for time on the way. Yi Fei secretly exclaimed that it was a close call, and hurriedly rushed back to his own mountain peak as fast as he could. Just as he reached the foot of the mountain, he saw that Zhou Xiaoyu was already standing at the foot of the spiritual mountain from afar, and was about to go up to look for him. Xia Jun, on the other hand, was constantly playing tricks, falling down one moment and screaming the next. He was desperately stalling for time, but Zhou Xiaoyu was already very impatient. "Xia Jun, you're deliberately playing tricks. What's going on? Did something happen to Yi Fei?" "Instructor Zhou, I'm not playing tricks. I just like you, and I want to stay with you for a while longer." Xia Jun thickened his skin, and actually mustered up the courage to confess to Zhou Xiaoyu. Zhou Xiaoyu was stunned. Looking at Xia Jun's shameless stalling tactics, she did not know how to react. Yi Fei was also stunned. He felt that Xia Jun was indeed loyal to his friends. In order to stall for time, he could actually come up with such a trick. This time, it was impossible for Zhou Xiaoyu to doubt him even if she wanted to. He coughed and pretended that he had just returned from outside. Zhou Xiaoyu was also shocked. When she finally reacted, she glared fiercely at Xia Jun and pretended that she did not understand Xia Jun's words. She turned her head to Yi Fei and said angrily, "Yi Fei, what are you doing? Today is the day of the ranking match, and you're actually strolling outside? What? There's another ranking battle today. Oh no, I was so focused on cultivating that I forgot about it. Instructor Zhou, I wonder if I'm still in time if I participate now?" Yi Fei had a very nervous expression as he secretly gave Xia Jun a thumbs up. Unfortunately, at this time, Zhou Xiaoyu was a little flustered and did not know what to do. She did not ask any more questions and only urged Yi Fei, "You definitely won't be in time for the competition. However, you can issue a challenge in front of everyone. As long as you can defeat the top 10 contestants, no one will be able to say anything." With that, Zhou Xiaoyu hurriedly led Yi Fei and Xia Jun back to the martial arts practice field as quickly as possible. At this time, the martial arts practice field was indeed as Zhou Xiaoyu had expected. The ranking match was nearing its end. Besides Yi Fei, there was another person who did not make it in time to participate in the ranking match. This person was naturally Qiu Mingshan. Chapter 1177. Yi Fei's challenge. What? A coward? As soon as Yi Fei arrived, he heard many people scolding him. He couldn't help but frown slightly. However, he didn't say much. After all, the mouths belonged to others. He couldn't care less about what others said. Instead of arguing, he might as well show his strength later and strive for a good ranking. He could give these people a slap in the face. Quietly standing behind the crowd, Yi Fei began to pay attention to the situation in the arena. As Zhou Xiaoyu expected, when he arrived, the battle in the arena was basically over. This time, the top 20 of the Earth rank had all been selected. The next battle would be the top 10 ranking battle. At the same time, this was also the battle that attracted the most attention. Almost all the disciples of the Sacred Academy, except for the heaven-ranked disciples, were focused on the arena. Shanglua also made it into the top 20? Yi Fei was a little surprised. However, when he thought of the dozens of quasi-emperor weapons Shanglua carried with her, he was speechless. At this moment, Shanglua also noticed Yi Fei who had arrived. She finally heaved a sigh of relief. Then, she glared at Yi Fei threateningly. One must know that if Yi Fei couldn't make it into the top 3 this time, she would lose a lot of spiritual stones. Following Shanglua's gaze, the new and old disciples finally noticed Yi Fei. "It's Yi Fei. He actually came." The one who spoke was a new disciple of the Snow Wind Empire. This person recognized Yi Fei at first sight. Then, more and more people recognized him. "It's really Yi Fei. Wasn't he so scared that he didn't dare to come? Humph, what's the use of coming now? The battle is already over. He has already lost the qualification to participate." That's not necessarily true. According to the rules of the Sacred Academy, if you have objections to the top 20 of the ranking battle, you can challenge them face to face. Could it be that Yi Fei deliberately didn't participate in the ranking battle so that he could challenge them at the end? A senior disciple who was familiar with the rules of the Sacred Academy explained the rules. Many people were stunned and then looked at Yi Fei with strange expressions. On the stage, all the disciples who entered the top 20 were standing on the stage. They were preparing to draw lots to determine the top 10. When they saw Yi Fei coming over at this time, their faces changed. Zhou Bai was also a little surprised. However, when he saw that Yi Fei was only a 5th-level martial sage, his gaze turned disdainful. He still did not take Yi Fei seriously. However, when Zhou Bai saw that Yi Fei was close to Zhou Xiaoyu, a cold glint flashed across his eyes. Zhou Xiaoyu pointed at the arena and said to Yi Fei, hurry up and challenge him. Remember, the higher you go, the more attention you will receive from the Saint Academy. Don't worry, Instructor Zhou. I won't let you down. Elder Lu had said similar words to him. Obviously, if he wanted to be valued by the Saint Academy, he had to show his strength that even the Saint Academy could not ignore. And this ranking battle was the best stage for him to show his strength. Without caring about other people's gazes, Yi Fei directly jumped onto the largest arena in the middle. There were already 20 top 20 disciples standing on the arena. Yi Fei's appearance was too abrupt and immediately attracted everyone's attention. Disciple Yi Fei, you have already lost the qualification to participate in the ranking battle. Why are you still here? The referee had a bad impression of Yi Fei and scolded him with a cold face. Yi Fei was very respectful. Although I have lost the qualification, according to the rules of the Sacred Academy, I still have the right to challenge others. Then who do you want to challenge? The referee nodded with a stiff face. Although he did not like Yi Fei, the Sacred Academy did have such a rule. Yi Fei did not hesitate. His eyes scanned the crowd and soon pointed at Zhou Bai. Senior brother Zhou, I was busy just now and missed the battle with you. Now that I am here, how about we have a rematch? Since he had to fight anyway, Yi Fei did not have the patience to challenge one by one. He might as well challenge the first place of the Earth class. If he won, he would easily get a lot of contribution points. If he lost, he would be able to see the gap between him and these senior disciples of the Sacred Academy. Boom! Hearing Yi Fei's words, the whole arena fell silent at first. Then it boiled like boiling water. Did they hear it wrong? Yi Fei wanted to challenge the first place of the Earth class as soon as he came up? Is Yi Fei not bluffing when he said he would flatten the Sacred Academy? Is he really going to do it? A disciple could not help but exclaim. Well, this guy has guts. I take back my words. He is not a coward. He is a real man, a real man. Yi Fei, we support you. Some disciples were influenced by Yi Fei and could not wait to see a fierce battle. Then, an angry roar interrupted all the voices. Zhou Bai did not bat an eyelid at Yi Fei's challenge. He just gave a young man in gray beside him a look. The young man in gray jumped out with a furious face. He pointed at Yi Fei and provoked him. Yi Fei, you are too presumptuous. You are just a useless person abandoned by the heavens. You are not qualified to challenge senior brother Zhou. Don't you agree, Mentor Jian? Mentor Jian, who understood that Shen Liang wanted his permission and did not have a good impression of Yi Fei, immediately nodded coldly. Shen Liang is right. Zhou Bai is the first place of the Earth class. Not just anyone can challenge him. How about this? You fight with Shen Liang first and I will see your strength first. Yi Fei was depressed. He knew that Mentor Jian was biased against him. He could not help but hesitate. If I defeat him, I can challenge the first place of the Earth class? If you can defeat Shen Liang, you don't need to challenge me. I will do it myself. Zhou Bai's expression was cold and arrogant, but he was still cautious. He did not make a move immediately. Instead, he asked his follower, Shen Liang, to test Yi Fei's strength first before deciding how to deal with Yi Fei. Although Yi Fei did not want to waste time, seeing that Zhou Bai had given him a definite answer, he cupped his hands and said to Shen Liang, Brother Shen, please make your move. Yi Fei, I heard that you boasted shamelessly and wanted to flatten the Sacred Institute. Today, I, Shen Liang, will teach you how to behave in the Sacred Institute. Shen Liang sneered. As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared in front of Yi Fei. At the same time, a terrifying sound of something breaking through the air came from behind Yi Fei's head. Yi Fei was surprised. Xinliang was so fast. Unfortunately. You want to sneak up on me? You're dreaming. Yi Fei did not even turn his head. His whole body suddenly erupted with boundless sword light. Then, his sword momentum condensed into a sword mountain and crashed down from the sky. It actually enveloped Yi Fei and Xinliang under the sword momentum. This move was beyond Xinliang's expectations. This guy is crazy. Does he want to perish together with me? A trace of fear inexplicably appeared in Xinliang's heart. He did not dare to continue attacking Yi Fei. Instead, he made full use of his profound meaning of speed. His footsteps left afterimages as he suddenly appeared behind Yi Fei and returned to his original position. After returning, Xinliang was still somewhat proud. With his speed, he was confident that he could escape Yi Fei's attack range and perish together with Yi Fei's move. In the end, he would only end up hurting himself. Chapter 1178. An intense battle, too late. Yi Fei bellowed. He did not give Xinliang a chance to react. With a rumble, the 8 primordial spirits in his body burst forth at the same time. The 100% heaven sword force condensed into an incomparably huge mountain of swords, instantly enveloping the entire arena. In this way, unless Xinliang escaped from the arena, he would definitely be injured by Yi Fei's mountain of swords. Realizing this problem, Xinliang was so angry that he almost vomited blood. His greatest advantage was his speed. But in the end, Yi Fei didn't give him any space to display his speed advantage. Yi Fei directly used brute force to overwhelm him, turning the entire arena into his target. No matter where Xinliang fled to, he would inevitably be smashed by the sword mountain. Yi Fei's move is really amazing. Seeing this scene, Zhou Xiaoyu's eyes suddenly lit up. She knew that she had made the right bet. Even if Yi Fei was abandoned by the heavens, Yi Fei's godly move alone was worthy of the Sacred Institute's great efforts to nurture him. No, I don't believe that you really dare to let the mountain of swords fall. Xinliang's eyes turned green. If such an indiscriminate mountain of swords fell, not only would he be seriously injured, but Yi Fei would also be seriously injured. Even if he won, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. If the mountain of swords falls, you won't have a chance to continue the challenge. I don't believe that you dare to do that. Kill, Heavenly Silkworm Hand. After all, he was an expert ranked 10th in the Earth grade. After recovering from his shock, Xinliang immediately used his advantage in speed. He wanted to defeat Yi Fei before the mountain of swords fell. His hands left afterimages. All of his vital essence turned into continuous threads, like a silkworm spitting silk. He wanted to bind Yi Fei in these layers of vital essence threads. Seeing this, Yi Fei did not do anything. With just a thought, the mountain of swords above his head fell with a terrible roar. There was no hesitation, nor was there any chance for Xinliang to resist. In the end, the crowd only heard a loud boom. The incomparably huge mountain of swords in the sky had already smashed the arena into pieces. It also caused the ground of the entire arena to shake violently. The faces of countless disciples turned as pale as a sheet of paper. Outside the stage, the top 20 Earth-class geniuses narrowed their eyes. Lunatic, this Yi Fei is a lunatic. He actually dares to condense such a terrifying sword mountain. How is this a battle? It's clearly a mutual destruction. Xinliang is in trouble. With such a big sword mountain smashing down, he will definitely be seriously injured. That Yi Fei won't fare any better. That move of his is clearly a self-destructive move. Let's see how he continues his challenge. The ground trembled for a full minute. Only then did it gradually calm down. At the same time, the smoke and dust that filled the air above the shattered arena also began to thin. Everyone's gazes were once again focused on the arena. Some were looking forward to it, some were nervous, and some were worried. If Yi Fei does this, will both sides really suffer? Zhou Xiaoyu and Shanglo were a little worried. They felt that Yi Fei had gone overboard. It's fine. Since Big Brother dares to do this, he must be confident that he won't get hurt. Xia Jun was full of confidence in Yi Fei. The little fatty also nodded. Suddenly, he pointed at the smoke and dust and said, Big Brother is fine, but Shen Liang has been knocked unconscious. What? Shen Liang is unconscious? Shen Liang is really unconscious. That's not right. Shen Liang has been knocked unconscious. How can Yi Fei be fine? Boom. The smoke and dust completely dispersed. Everyone was shocked to see two figures standing and lying inside. The one standing was naturally Yi Fei. The one lying unconscious was naturally Shen Liang. Under Yi Fei's mutually destructive attack, Shen Liang didn't even have the chance to use his speed profound meaning before he fainted in front of Yi Fei. You've lost, Yi Fei said to the unconscious Shen Liang. Shen Liang didn't speak. He was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. Zhou Bai, it looks like you've met your match. This Yi Fei isn't simple. Beside Zhou Bai stood a woman in red with a bow on her back. Her name was Ling Hong, and she was also ranked second in the Earth rank. Through this battle, she could see two advantages of Yi Fei. Humph, I admit that this Yi Fei does have some ability. His quintessential essence is very strong, so he should be cultivating his primordial spirit. He can withstand the sword attack without getting hurt, which proves that his physical body is very strong. However, he also has two huge weaknesses. First, his cultivation level is lower than mine. Second, he is a person abandoned by the heavens. This is destined that he will never surpass me. Not in the future, not now. Zhou Bai was very smart. He was so smart that he could analyze Yi Fei's strengths and weaknesses just by seeing Yi Fei's sword attack. However, he was also very cold, so cold that he didn't even look at the unconscious Shen Liang on the ground. Then, he leaped up and flew into the sky. Yi Fei, do you dare to fight with me in the sky? Zhou Bai took the initiative to speak calmly. His words made the eyes of the other Earth-rank disciples on the ground light up. Seeing that Yi Fei was able to condense such a huge sword attack, fighting with Yi Fei in the arena would be courting death. However, in the sky there was a lot of room to maneuver. Yi Fei obviously saw through Zhou Bai's plan. Although he was surprised by this person's insight, he didn't refuse. After all, his original purpose in coming here was to defeat Zhou Bai and win the Earth rank's first place. As long as I defeat this person, I'll be 2/3 of the way to my goal of flattening the Sacred Academy. The only ones left are the 10 heaven-ranked disciples. Thinking of this, Yi Fei felt his blood boil. A real man should hold a 3-foot-long sword and look down on all heroes. Since I've joined the Sacred Academy, I'll either not compete or fight for first place. Brother Zhou, please enlighten me. Yi Fei took a step and appeared in the sky. Kill! Zhou Bai shouted coldly, ignoring Yi Fei's etiquette. He stretched out his hands, which were as fierce as a tiger's claws, and let out a deafening roar. Yi Fei immediately felt his eardrums explode and his head hurt. Then, he saw a white tiger break out of the cage and roar. It was the famous 4 xiangs of Zhenwu of the Sacred Academy of Zhenwu. However, Zhou Bai's 4 xiangs of Zhenwu was obviously more powerful and domineering than Shangguan Nu's half-emperor. He's not a half-emperor, but he can cultivate the 4 xiangs of Zhenwu to a level that even a half-emperor tutor can't reach. This person will be a difficult opponent to deal with. It's a pity that he's a bit sinister. Yi Fei had greeted him out of kindness, but the other party had taken the opportunity to attack him first. No matter how good-tempered Yi Fei was, he couldn't help but feel angry. Heaven's sword art, sword momentum like a mountain. Yi Fei pointed his sword at the sky. He didn't use the devouring spirit sword, but his majestic vital essence still condensed into 1, 2, 3, a total of 8 majestic sword mountains, which slashed forward. Following Yi Fei's counterattack, this fierce battle between a dragon and a tiger had officially begun. Chapter 1179. Divine seals like mountains. How is it? Big brother, can you defeat Zhou Bai this time? Xia Jun's face was full of worry. Zhou Bai's 4 manifestations of Zhen Wu was simply too powerful, more powerful than anyone Xia Jun had ever seen. I think Yi Fei is at a disadvantage. Zhou Bai is a 7th level martial sage, while Yi Fei is only a 5th level martial sage. The difference of 2 levels is not that easy to overcome. Besides, my nephew still has a trump card. To be honest, Yi Fei is taking a huge risk by recklessly challenging Zhou Bai. Zhou Xiaoyu's words were shocking. Shang Luo and the others had not expected Zhou Bai to be Zhou Xiaoyu's nephew. Xia Jun's face turned pale. He recalled that he had shamelessly confessed to Zhou Xiaoyu in order to stall for time. If Zhou Bai heard about this, boom! The battle in the sky interrupted Xia Jun's thoughts. Everyone in the martial arts practice field focused their attention on the sky. They watched as Yi Fei's 8 sword mountains turned into meteors and smashed forward, causing the sky to shake violently. The whistling sword mountains soon drowned the sky where Zhou Bai was. Then, a terrifying tiger roar came from inside. Zhou Bai waved his tiger claws on top of the sword mountains, and even the void was torn apart. The genuine essence sword mountains were immediately torn apart and scattered into flowing light all over the sky. Yi Fei was not surprised by this. A 7th level martial sage and the 1st in the earth rank. This Zhou Bai is indeed powerful. However, I will not lose. Yi Fei's personality was to become stronger when facing a strong opponent. Zhou Bai's strength did not frighten Yi Fei. Instead, it stimulated Yi Fei's fighting spirit. His fighting spirit burned like a flame and condensed into an even more terrifying purple-gold sword light. Seeing that the heaven sword art could not defeat Zhou Bai, Yi Fei decisively used the power of despair and released the profound of life and death. A beam of light containing the aura of death slashed toward the sky. The dazzling light seemed to destroy the world. Yi Fei, you are very strong, but your biggest mistake was to challenge me. You shouldn't have challenged someone you can never surpass. Zhou Bai roared at the sky. What came out of his mouth wasn't a human voice, but a terrifying dragon roar. 10 azure dragons appeared behind him. The 10 dragons competed with each other, causing the world to lose all light. Only the 10 azure dragons stretched out their huge dragon claws, shattering the void and smashing towards Yi Fei. It was as if they wanted to smack Yi Fei into hell. At this moment, Yi Fei's eyes suddenly shone with divine light. The eye of lightning punishment condensed into a purple vertical eye on his forehead. Using the power of the vertical eye, Yi Fei quickly found a weak spot in the azure dragon. Then, he stabbed the purple-gold Taiji sword at the azure dragon's weak spot without hesitation. With a loud boom, the azure dragon suddenly cried out in pain. Yi Fei had cut it in 2 from the middle. Then, Yi Fei took a step forward and rushed towards the second azure dragon. But before he could make a move, Zhou Bai's eyes suddenly emitted a cold light. Azure Dragon 10 explosions. Boom, boom, boom. The 9 azure dragons connected at the top, forming a huge circle that surrounded Yi Fei. Then, they exploded. The power of the explosion instantly shattered the space where Yi Fei was, turning it into nothingness. Purple gold Taiji. I am invincible and invincible. Yi Fei stood proudly in the nothingness. He looked solemn and dignified, like a divine king descending to the world. A layer of purple gold Taiji sphere spread out from his body, covering a radius of 10 meters. No matter how strong the explosion outside was, it could not hurt him at all. At the same time, more than 10 spiritual consciousnesses gathered on Yi Fei's purple gold Taiji. Old Lu and the other martial emperors in the Great Hall in the Void gasped in surprise. This was the second time they had seen Yi Fei use the purple gold Taiji. However, until now they still could not figure out the origin of Yi Fei's martial technique. The explosion of the 10 azure dragons had not hurt Yi Fei. Zhou Bai suddenly became angry. He shouted in a deep voice, "You are undefeated because you have not met me yet. No one can remain undefeated before me. When the divine seal appears, it will suppress the heavens and the earth and destroy all my enemies." Zhou Bai's blood boiled and his body emitted boundless light. Finally, there was a small seal in the middle of the light. Many disciples in the top 20 of the earth rank were terrified when they saw the seal. That is the seal of heaven and earth formed by the power of Zhou Bai's blood. Many geniuses who challenged Zhou Bai in the past died tragically under this divine seal. Divine seal? Yi Fei looked at the divine seal behind Zhou Bai and smiled coldly. Even Fa Wudao did not dare to call his fate wheel a divine wheel. However, Zhou Bai dared to call his divine seal a divine seal. This person was really conceited. In that case, I will break this **T divine seal. Yi Fei was infuriated that Zhou Bai wanted to kill him. It was merely a challenge, but Zhou Bai actually wanted to kill him. Yi Fei started to circulate the war demon doctrine with all his might. Every inch of his body was emitting a golden demonic light. At this moment, Yi Fei's aura was overwhelming, like an ancient war demon. Rumble! He began to walk out of the shattered void, one step at a time. It was almost as if the spatial power around him didn't even exist to begin with. His physical body is actually so strong. Zhou Bai was shocked. If it had been him, he would not have been able to walk through the void with just his physical body. However, the stronger Yi Fei was, the more determined Zhou Bai was to kill Yi Fei. I must kill him. I will not allow anyone in the earth rank to be on par with me. The divine seal shook the sky. The divine seal in Zhou Bai's hand grew rapidly. As Yi Fei walked out of the void step by step, the divine seal had turned into a huge divine mountain. It suppressed the world and crushed everything. Yi Fei actually felt a strong threat of death from the divine seal. Inwardly, he was furious at Zhou Bai for being so vicious. The only thing he could do was to use all his strength to resolve the crisis. Tai Chi profound, life and death profound. Yi Fei no longer held back. A terrifying mountain of bones appeared behind him. A black and white Tai Chi symbol floated in the sky above the mountain of bones. Then, it turned into a Tai Chi sword diagram that contained a boundless aura of death and slashed at the giant divine seal in the sky. At this moment, Zhou Bai suddenly laughed. Two profound meanings. Yi Fei, you are indeed a genius for being able to reach this stage with your heaven-abandoned trash body. Unfortunately, I, Zhou Bai, am even more of a genius than you. Divine seal profound. Mountain profound. Zhou Bai had also comprehended two profound meanings. Moreover, these two profound meanings were very compatible with his bloodline divine seal. The divine mountain in the sky changed again. Countless illusory buildings like pavilions and towers appeared on the divine mountain. Chapter 1180. Taiji God slaying mountain. The divine seal was as big as a mountain. At this moment, heaven and earth ceased to exist. Only Zhou Bai's divine seal remained, suppressing heaven and earth as it crashed down with illusory pavilions. Everyone could tell that Zhou Bai wasn't exchanging blows with Yi Fei at all. Instead, he wanted to take Yi Fei's life. Many people still remembered that there was a bloodline genius with great potential who could fight across 7 levels in the future who had tried to challenge Zhou Bai. In the end, that genius had also died tragically under the divine seal. Zhou Bai's reputation as the number 1 in the Earth class had been established. The current battle was extremely similar to that battle. While many Earth class disciples were exclaiming, they couldn't help but feel pity. There's no need to watch. No one in the Earth class can stop Zhou Bai's divine seal. That Yi Fei is completely finished. Seeing that Zhou Bai had actually used a killing move in the middle of a ranking battle, Elder Lu was furious. He was about to join forces with the other martial emperors to stop him. This Zhou Bai is talented, but unfortunately, he's too narrow-minded. Last time, he killed a genius who might have surpassed him. We won't allow it to happen again." In the main hall, Elder Lu had already stood up and was about to end this battle. Suddenly, an old voice came from the depths of the main hall. "Wait. Let this battle continue. That little fellow Yi Fei is very strange. This old man wants to continue observing him." Thus, under the interference of this old voice, the martial emperors in the main hall quieted down again. Only Elder Lu looked at Yi Fei anxiously. "Little Yi, don't try to be brave. It's not shameful to lose to Zhou Bai." After that, Elder Lu stared blankly as the huge divine mountain fell towards Yi Fei. Many people held their breaths as they watched the magnificent divine mountain gradually engulf Yi Fei. However, these people didn't notice that when the divine mountain fell, Yi Fei's eyes didn't reveal fear, but intense excitement and battle intent. So what if it's a sacred mountain? I've never been afraid of heavenly tribulations, let alone an illusory sacred mountain. I will never lose. Yi Fei roared in his heart. His undefeatable conviction supported him as he charged madly towards the sacred mountain. The dazzling sword light suddenly transformed into a gigantic Taiji sword diagram. When it fully opened, it filled the entire sky. However, Zhou Bai's divine mountain was too terrifying. The Taiji sword diagram only resisted for a dozen breaths before the entire diagram was torn apart. The sky was filled with purple gold flowing light. However, in this sky full of flowing light, there was another black figure. "Kill! Tai Chi Cloud Hands!" Taking advantage of the moment when the sacred mountain was blocked, Yi Fei actually charged forward in a frenzy. He opened his left hand, and in his palm, there was a ball of purple energy. He opened his right hand, and in his palm, there was a ball of golden light. The moment the purple-gold light merged, Yi Fei's palms formed a special cloud of Tai Chi. He slammed his palms onto the sacred mountain. Boom! The towering sacred mountain started to shake violently. It was no longer descending. Instead, Yi Fei used the Taiji cloud palm and used the technique of using little force to push the sacred mountain away. The sacred mountain actually turned around and headed straight for Zhou Bai. "This is impossible." Zhou Bai was extremely shocked. He never expected Yi Fei's martial arts to be so strange that he could push his sacred mountain back. If not for the fact that they both had the same undefeatable conviction, this move alone would have been enough to make Zhou Bai despair. Then, a look of immense anger appeared on Zhou Bai's face. He was of a special bloodline. He was the #1 genius of the Earth stage, but now, he had used all his strength and was unable to kill a person with a body that was publicly acknowledged as useless by the heavens. "Yi Fei, you forced me to do this." Zhou Bai became even more unscrupulous in his rage. He suddenly took a step forward and rushed into the sacred mountain. It was as if a deity had entered the illusory pavilion. Zhou Bai's divine light was like a flame. With a flip of his palm, the huge sacred mountain immediately shattered the void and destroyed the firmament. It crashed towards Yi Fei at an even more terrifying speed. "Oh no, Zhou Bai still has a trick up his sleeve. However, I will definitely not lose." The sword radiance on his body whistled wildly. Yi Fei no longer dared to hold back. He took a deep breath and unleashed the power of the 8 primordial spirits in his body at the same time. A terrifying sword radiance formed a pillar of light that illuminated the area. As Yi Fei pointed with his sword, the pillar of light formed a huge Tai Chi sword diagram. Feeling that this was not enough, Yi Fei made up his mind again. Not only did he activate the life and death ultimacy, but he also activated the Tai Chi ultimacy to the maximum. At the same time, Yi Fei recalled the scene of his battle with Fa Wudao in the battle god space. "Back then, I used my telekinesis to freeze Fa Wudao for a breath. Since telekinesis can freeze Fa Wudao, it should be able to freeze Zhou Bai as well. Telekinesis freeze." Boom. Yi Fei widened his eyes furiously and glared forward. The consciousness in his mind turned into a tidal wave of telekinesis that formed a mysterious restrictive force. This restrictive force was originally used by the Zhu family to refine weapons. It was used to condense molten iron and form weapons. Who would have thought that Yi Fei would use it this way? The telekinesis that he cultivated was not used to refine weapons, but to refine people. Of course, strictly speaking, Zhou Bai's divine seal was also considered a special weapon. Naturally, it would also be affected by telekinesis. The divine mountain, which had been hurtling towards Yi Fei, suddenly paused for a moment. Zhou Bai, who was on the divine mountain, was extremely shocked. He didn't understand what was going on at all, so he instinctively released all his strength in an attempt to break free from this invisible binding force. Yi Fei immediately seized this opportunity and grabbed the purple-gold sword radiance that had been condensed. The terrifying sword radiance formed a torrential sword river that caused the entire sacred mountain to tremble. At this moment, the advantage of Yi Fei's primordial spirit was revealed. Although Yi Fei's realm wasn't as high as Zhou Bai's and his aptitude wasn't as good as a bloodline martialist like Zhou Bai, he still relied on the advantage of his primordial spirit and the power of despair to continuously hack at the sacred mountain. In just a short span of time, he had unleashed a total of 100 full-powered strikes. If it were any other cultivator, forming a river of swords in one breath would be enough to tire them out. However, Yi Fei slashed out 8 such rivers of swords before he felt dizzy and fell into the sky, completely drained of energy. Boom! By the time Yi Fei fell from the sky, the 8 sword rivers had already completely engulfed Zhou Bai's sacred mountain. The entire sacred mountain suddenly exploded. The illusory pavilion on the sacred mountain also shattered into pieces. What? Zhou Bai spat out blood frantically. The sacred mountain was formed from his bloodline. When the sacred mountain shattered, he was immediately seriously injured. Zhou Bai had never imagined that Yi Fei would use such a barbaric method to break his strongest bloodline martial technique. He was so angry and hurt that he fainted on the spot. The number 1 of the Earth rank is indeed powerful. He actually forced me to this extent. Although Yi Fei was standing on the ground, he felt that he could faint at any moment. His body was extremely weak, and his 8 primordial spirits were all dispirited and listless. Chapter 1181. Heavenly Genius, Shanglu. Yi Fei was a little touched. He had never expected that Shanglua, who usually looked like an unscrupulous businessman, would be so loyal at such a critical moment. He was about to say something to express his gratitude, but Shanglua did not give him the chance to do so. Yi Fei, you don't need to say anything, this fairy understands. This elemental spirit pill is worth 2 billion high-grade spirit stones. It can instantly restore the consumption of one of your primordial spirit. Since we are all friends, this fairy is selling it to you. Shanglua was all smiles. She was very excited about this big business deal. Upon hearing this, Yi Fei was so grateful that he wanted to feed the pill to the dogs. However, when he heard that the elemental spirit pill was so expensive, he was so scared that he quickly opened his mouth to spit it out. Shangluo also quickly took out another bottle of spirit liquid. Taking advantage of the moment when Yi Fei opened his mouth, Shangluo forcefully poured the entire bottle of spirit liquid into Yi Fei's mouth. Yi Fei, I told you to stop talking. Don't worry, since we're so close, this bottle of spirit liquid is free. Yi Fei wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He finally understood what it meant to be an unscrupulous businessman. He had just defeated Zhou Bai and was about to get 500,000 contribution points. However, Shanglua had just taken out a lousy pill and given half of it to him. Yi Fei wished that he could take out the pill he had swallowed. However, the medicinal power of the elemental spirit pill was really strong. As soon as he swallowed it, It turned into an astonishing amount of spirit qi and revitalized Yi Fei's withered primordial spirit. He immediately regained the ability to fight. Of course, while Yi Fei had a miraculous pill like the elemental spirit pill, Zhou Bai did not receive the same treatment. Mentor Jian, who was in charge of the referee, rushed over and injected some quintessential yuan into Zhou Bai's body. After a long time, Zhou Bai finally woke up from his coma. The first thing Zhou Bai did when he woke up was to glare at Yi Fei with hatred and roar, "Yi Fei! You cheated!" "I cheated? How did I cheat?" Yi Fei looked at Zhou Bai and secretly shook his head. This person was talented, but he was too narrow-minded. "No, you must have cheated. My talent is stronger than yours, my cultivation is higher than yours, and my bloodline is far superior to yours. How can you compare to me? How could I lose to you in a head-on battle? You must have used some kind of treasure to plot against me. Don't think I don't know." Zhou Bai's eyes were red and blue from anger. He was the first in the earth rank and had never been defeated before. How could he be willing to lose to Yi Fei? Especially when Yi Fei was a heaven-abandoned cripple with no future to speak of. Upon hearing Zhou Bai's words, all the warriors looked at Yi Fei in shock. Cheating? Yi Fei actually cheated during the battle? That's not possible. We all saw the entire battle and didn't see him take out any treasures. That's hard to say. Some treasures can be hidden in the body and hurt people from a distance. Senior brother Zhou clearly suppressed Yi Fei at the last moment, but he was defeated by Yi Fei. Don't you find it strange? Upon hearing the discussions of the surrounding disciples, Mentor Jian, who was the referee, looked at Yi Fei sternly. "Disciple Yi Fei, do you admit to Zhou Bai's accusation?" "I don't admit it. I didn't cheat," Yi Fei said calmly. "Yes, my brother has always been invincible. He didn't need to cheat to defeat Zhou Bai." Xia Jun and the little fatty were very agitated. Even Lin Tianjiao, who had rushed over after hearing the news, looked angry. "Yi Fei, since you didn't cheat, let me ask you. Back then, Zhou Bai had already suppressed you and was about to defeat you. What tricks did you use to turn defeat into victory?" Instructor Jian asked in a low voice with a face full of suspicion. "Mentor Jian, why are you talking to this trash? He must have cheated. Otherwise, how could a cripple like him defeat a bloodline genius like me, even if he had some fortuitous encounters? Mentor, please uphold justice for me." Zhou Bai was furious. He didn't believe it. He couldn't accept it. A bloodline warrior like him couldn't even compare to Yi Fei, who had a heaven-abandoned cripple constitution. This crushing defeat had already affected his confidence. Mentor Jian still thought highly of the strongest Earth-rank genius. He couldn't help but look at Yi Fei again. "Yi Fei, what else do you have to say? If a teacher of the Sacred Academy doesn't even know that telekinesis can control objects, then I have nothing to say. If you can't even defeat a piece of trash like me, then what right do you have to call yourself a genius?" Yi Fei said sarcastically. However, in order to prove that he hadn't cheated, he suddenly released his telekinesis again. This time, he stared coldly at Mentor Jian. He was addicted to refining people. Refining Zhou Bai wasn't enough, so he might as well refine this demi-emperor tutor as well. That way, he wouldn't have to waste his breath here. "You." Mentor Jian was shocked when he sensed Yi Fei's powerful telekinesis fluctuations. He realized that Yi Fei's telekinesis had really confined his body. Although it had only lasted for less than half a breath, this short amount of time was enough for an expert to do a lot of things. Telekinesis can actually be used like this? Zhou Xiaoyu was also shocked. What was even stranger was that, as Zhou Bai's sister-in-law, she didn't stand on his side. The two of them didn't seem to have a good relationship. This made Xia Jun secretly happy. He knew that as long as Zhou Xiaoyu didn't say anything, her powerful nephew wouldn't seek revenge on him. "Sigh, it's not easy for me to confess my love. Big brother, I'm doing this for you. Xia Jun's face was full of emotion, as if he had just survived a disaster. Zhou Bai's expression was uglier than if he had swallowed a fly. Telekinesis, it's actually telekinesis. It can actually attack. Isn't it only used by weapon refiners to forge weapons? It was no wonder that Zhou Bai hadn't thought of it. In fact, weapon refiners rarely participated in battles. Even if they did, they would use all kinds of powerful weapons they forged. For example, in Shangluo, more than a dozen quasi-emperor weapons were thrown out. Even a half-emperor would be defeated. Since they didn't use it often, of course, they wouldn't have thought of it. Yi Fei, on the other hand, was an anomaly among the refiners. All the cultivation arts and martial arts he had acquired would be used for fighting subconsciously. That was why he had stumbled upon the trick of using psyche to assist him in fighting. After hearing Yi Fei's explanation, not only Zhou Bai and the disciples present were dumbfounded, but they were also amazed by Yi Fei's strange fighting method. In the Void Hall, the martial emperors who were watching the battle were also stunned. Telekinesis can be used like this? Damn it, why didn't the weapon refiners of the Saint Academy think of it? It's not that they didn't think of it, but that they didn't use it. After all, telekinesis can only assist in battles. In fact, it's easy to guard against it once you know this. For example, some martial arts techniques that cultivate divine thoughts can easily break the confinement of telekinesis. The martial emperors of the Saint Academy were very knowledgeable. They quickly found a way to restrain the confinement of telekinesis after hearing Yi Fei's explanation. Chapter 1182. Going astray this time, many martial emperors finally nodded in agreement with old Lu's words. Those martial emperors who didn't nod were still a bit worried about Yi Fei's identity as a person abandoned by the heavens. However, Yi Fei's performance in the ranking battle was remarkable. His use of telekinesis at the end had even amazed them. They couldn't find a reason to stop the Sacred Institute from nurturing Yi Fei with all their might. The most excited one was still old Lu. I was the one who discovered Yi Fei's talent first. According to the rules, this disciple should be my disciple. You old fellows can't snatch him from me. Haha, junior brother Lu, what are you saying? Since you value Yi Fei so much, of course we won't fight with you over him. The martial emperors present all laugh. However, before old Lu could step forward to recruit Yi Fei, a long voice rang out. Suddenly, a long sigh could be heard coming from the main hall. Wait, Yi Fei cannot become a disciple of any martial emperor. The Holy Institute will not spare any effort to nurture him. The martial emperors in the hall were all shocked. Old Lu stood up emotionally. He faced the sky and argued, "Third Dean, if you don't want us to accept Yi Fei as a disciple, we can comply. However, why don't you let the Sacred Institute nurture Yi Fei with all their might? It's true that Yi Fei was abandoned by the heavens, but his comprehension is so strong. Can you find another person in the Sacred Institute who can match him?" The sigh in the sky became even louder. Then, an old man in a sacred robe walked out of the sky. He was the third dean of the Sacred Institute of True Martial Sacred Institute. At the same time, he was also one of the few remaining quasi-emperors of the Sacred Institute. However, this quasi-emperor was already very old. "Everyone, I know you will doubt my decision. Even I found it very difficult to make this decision. However, there's no other way. Yi Fei's comprehension of martial arts is comparable to that of the Divine Martial Sacred Institute and the girl from the Lu clan in the Four Great Sacred Institute." Hearing this, Elder Lu was even more perplexed. He immediately asked, "Third Principal, since you are certain of Yi Fei's talent, why don't you value him? Is it because he has been abandoned by the heavens?" The other martial emperors also looked at the third headmaster with puzzled expressions. However, no one said anything. They knew that the third headmaster must have his reasons for making such a decision. Faced with Elder Lu's doubts, The third dean suddenly revealed an expression of great regret and had the excited elder Lu sit back down. Don't you find it strange? Yi Fei doesn't have a special bloodline and is a person abandoned by the heavens. Why is it that the combat strength he displayed was stronger than many bloodline martial practitioners? Dean, do you suspect that there's something wrong with Yi Fei's identity? A coarse martial emperor suddenly asked with a murderous look on his face. The third dean waved his hand and said, "It's not his identity, it's his strength. The martial path that this kid has chosen is the path of despair. Not to mention our holy academy, even those quasi-emperor noble clans would not dare to nurture him." What? The path of despair? Elder Lu was shocked. The other martial emperors also stood up in disbelief. Of course they knew about the path of despair. It was the strongest path that had been passed down since ancient times. However, it was also because it was the strongest that this path was incomparably difficult. Since ancient times, countless geniuses had fallen on this path. As time passed, the ancient martial gods unanimously concluded that the path of despair was simply a path of death that could not be walked. There were even some sages who suspected that this path was a lie fabricated by a certain race with ulterior motive. It was all for the sake of having the strongest geniuses of the human race fall one after another on this path of despair to achieve the goal of weakening the human race. When the third dean said this, all the martial emperors present fell silent. Even Elder Lu did not utter a word. Instead, his face was filled with regret and helplessness. This Yi Fei has gone astray. He could have chosen any martial path, but he just had to choose the path of death that is destined to lead to despair. It's a pity for this kid. In ancient times, there were countless descendants of martial gods and martial emperors who were 10 times or 100 times more talented than Yi Fei. However, they all failed in the end and all died on this path. Moreover, he was a person abandoned by the heavens. This kid really dug his own grave. If he was only a person abandoned by the heavens, as long as he displayed reliable talent, we could still work together and forcefully push him to the martial emperor realm. Unfortunately, he actually chose the path of despair. What a pity, what a pity! This kid was born with a deficiency. Now that he has not gone astray, not to mention that the Holy Academy is unable to nurture him, even if the entire central continent was his backing, he would still not be able to walk this path of death. The end of despair is death. The Holy Academy cannot place its hopes on a dead person. The third dean closed his eyes. In the end, he still made what he thought was the most rational decision. The most disappointed person was still Elder Lu. He had long wanted to accept Yi Fei as his personal disciple and had made many preparations for this. However, after knowing that Yi Fei had chosen the path of despair, Elder Lu still hesitated. Then, he let out a long sigh. It seems that we can only give up. However, third dean, please don't tell Yi Fei that the Holy Academy has already given up on him. It was not easy for this kid to reach where he is today as a person abandoned by the heavens. This request was not excessive. The third dean nodded and said, "Sure." Although Yi Fei has gone astray, he joined the Holy Academy as the first on the heaven ranking. We cannot disappoint him. How about this? Yi Fei's treatment in the Holy Academy will not change. However, no martial emperor is allowed to accept him as a disciple, let alone allow him to become a heaven-rank disciple. According to the rules of the Holy Academy, once a heaven-rank disciple became a heaven-rank disciple, the Holy Academy would do its best to train him. Of course, the third dean also felt that this decision was too cruel to Yi Fei. After thinking for a while, he ordered, "The Holy Academy cannot train Yi Fei, but I can make up for it. How about this? Pass down the order that the top 10 of the ranking battle can enter the true martial immortal palace to cultivate for a year. As for what they can comprehend in a year, it will depend on their own luck." After saying this, the third dean's figure slowly disappeared in the void. All the martial emperors present, including Elder Lu, disappeared from the main hall. This surprised many disciples who were waiting for the martial emperors to announce the result of the battle. Yi Fei was also a bit confused. What's going on? Didn't the true martial handbook say that after the ranking battle, a martial emperor will appear and announce the ranking? Did I come too late and the Holy Academy doesn't want to admit that I'm the first in the Earth rank? How dare they? I've bet a lot on you. If they don't let you be the first, I'll tear down their martial imperial palace. As he spoke, Shangluo took out a treasure from his body. It was a complete sovereign weapon. Yi Fei's eyelids twitched violently. He quickly moved away from this dangerous person. Zhou Xiaoyu and Mentor Jian were also embarrassed. They hurriedly pretended that they didn't understand what Shangluo was saying. Then they discussed it with each other for a while. Mentor Jian, who was still the judge, walked into the sky and said to the disciples in a dignified manner, "Unfortunately, the martial emperors are busy and can't show up. Now, I'll announce the final ranking of the ranking battle. The first place is Yi Fei. He will be rewarded with 500,000 contribution points." Boom! As soon as the reward was announced, many disciples looked at Yi Fei with envy. 500,000 contribution points were equivalent to 5 billion upper-level spirit stones. However, when he thought that he had been cheated of 2 billion upper-level spirit stones by Shangluo's elixir, Yi Fei felt very depressed. However, since the martial emperors didn't appear, he heaved a sigh of relief. Yi Fei was a smart person. Of course, he could tell that Elder Lu intended to take him in as a disciple. However, he was helpless. He had already taken the demon monarch as his master. If Elder Lu mentioned it again, he really didn't know how to respond. Chapter 1183. The Injustice of the Sacred Academy, Second Place, Zhou Bai. He will be rewarded with 500,000 contribution points. Then, Mentor Jian announced another unexpected reward. According to the rules of the ranking battle, Zhou Bai, who was in second place, should only be rewarded with 400,000 contribution points. However, the Saint Academy still decided to give Zhou Bai the first place in the ranking battle and rewarded him with 500,000 contribution points. Such a situation had never happened in the previous ranking battles of the Saint Academy. This caused a commotion and jealousy among the senior disciples present. No one who could enter the Sacred Academy was weak. They could see that the Sacred Academy was biased toward Zhou Bai. Obviously, even though Zhou Bai had lost to Yi Fei, the Sacred Academy still valued him very much. They valued him even more than they valued Yi Fei. Otherwise, the Sacred Academy wouldn't have ignored Yi Fei's feelings and let the defeated Zhou Bai receive the same reward as Yi Fei. Yi Fei was even more depressed when he heard this decision. He had used all his trump cards and finally defeated Zhou Bai. However, the Sacred Academy narrowed the gap between them with just one sentence. Yi Fei also vaguely felt that the Sacred Academy's decision might not be a good thing for him. Could it be that the higher-ups of the Sacred Academy don't like me because I've been abandoned by the heavens? Are they deliberately trying to intimidate me? Hearing this decision, Zhou Bai, who was still immersed in his defeat, suddenly became lively and energetic as if he had taken medicine. He laughed proudly. "Yi Fei, did you see that? So what if you defeated me by luck? Compared to a good-for-nothing like you, the Sacred Academy will only value me. It will always value a bloodline genius like me." Thinking that he had figured out Yi Fei's trump card, Zhou Bai took this opportunity to completely trample Yi Fei under his feet and take back his lost position. He provoked, "Yi Fei, do you dare to compete with me again?" "Sorry, I'm not free." Yi Fei refused without hesitation. "Coward! Could it be that you're afraid?" Zhou Bai said angrily. He was confident that he could defeat Yi Fei this time and wash away his shame because he had already thought of a way to break Yi Fei's telekinesis. Yi Fei couldn't stand Zhou Bai's smug look, so he couldn't help but get a little angry. What good can I do if I fight you now? Unless you lose all your contribution points to me. Shameless boasting. I think you're just courting death. Zhou Bai was enraged. He hadn't even settled the score with this trash yet, but this trash dared to covet his contribution points? Zhou Bai couldn't stand it anymore. He was about to throw caution to the wind and rush forward to force Yi Fei to take action. Zhou Xiaoyu, who had been silent all this time, suddenly warned in a low voice, "Zhou Bai, stop. The reason why the Holy Court values you is so that you can improve your strength, not so that you can bully others." Ahem, Instructor Zhou, young people are all hot-tempered. However, Zhou Bai, now is not the time for you to settle your differences. The Dean has ordered that the top 10 Earth-rank disciples this time can enter the true martial sacred hall to cultivate for a year. You can settle your differences after you've finished your cultivation. Instructor Jian coughed and tried to smooth things over. Of course, his words caused a huge commotion in the martial arts field. What? The top 10 Earth-rank disciples this time can enter the true martial sacred hall to cultivate? Oh my God, that's a privilege only heaven-ranked disciples get to enjoy. The heavens are unfair. If I had known that I could enter the top 10, I would have fought with my life on the line rather than admit defeat. The one who screamed was the 11th rank disciple. He had been ranked 10th, but he had admitted defeat because he was afraid of Shangluo's wealth. He had allowed Shangluo to take advantage of him for nothing. He was so regretful that his intestines turned green. However, he wasn't the only one who was regretful. All the top 20 Earth-rank disciples were regretting their decision. If they had known that there would be such a great opportunity, they would have fought with their lives on the line. They had no hope of entering the top 5, but it was very possible for them to enter the top 10. The only thing they could do now was to look at the 10 people on the stage with envy and jealousy. Zhou Bai immediately changed his words. He stared coldly at Yi Fei and continued to provoke him. "Yi Fei, how about changing our battle to a year later? I'll show you how powerful I am then. It depends on my mood. It's very expensive for me to fight. Costs at least 1,000,000 contribution points. Please don't come to me. I don't have time to waste on you." Yi Fei spread his hands helplessly. He could tell that Instructor Jian was partial to Zhou Bai. He was a little disappointed with the Holy Court. However, Yi Fei didn't show his dissatisfaction. After all, he still needed to stay in the Holy Court. He'd better take advantage of the situation first. Ignoring Zhou Bai's threat, Yi Fei walked out of the arena directly. This made Instructor Jian very unhappy. He reminded him coldly, "Disciple Yi Fei, you can go to the true martial sacred hall in 10 days. Remember, this is your only chance. Don't miss it." 10 days later, "I'll definitely go." Yi Fei didn't even look back as he simply left. Zhou Bai was unhappy that he couldn't force Yi Fei to fight. He sneered disdainfully, "Humph, a useless person abandoned by the heavens dares to disrespect your elders. You have no manners at all." "Zhou Bai, shut up. A martial artist can be killed, but not humiliated. Don't think that you're so great." Suddenly, a piece of spiritual melon flew towards him, almost hitting Zhou Bai's face. Then, Shang Luo ignored the surprised looks of the crowd and strode down the arena to chase after Yi Fei. At the same time, Xia Jun, Little Fatty, and Lin Tianjiao also left. Many martial artists from the Snow Wind Empire hesitated. At this time, many chose to leave to express their dissatisfaction with the Holy Court's neglect of Yi Fei. They're rebelling. These new disciples are really audacious. Instructor Jian was very angry this time. They were clearly ignoring the authority of the instructors. You can't blame them. If you want to blame someone, blame the Holy Court. Their punishment this time is really unfair. Zhou Xiaoyu sighed. Instructor Jian smiled helplessly. Obviously, they all knew that the Holy Court had decided to give up Yi Fei and focus on cultivating Zhou Bai. To be honest, this decision is very painful, but it's not worth wasting resources on someone who's destined to die. Instructor Jian said what the higher-ups of the Holy Court were thinking, but Yi Fei couldn't hear their thoughts. Leaving early seemed to be dissatisfied with the Holy Court's punishment, but in fact, Yi Fei was worried about leaving Gua King on the mountain. So he took advantage of the Holy Court's neglect to leave early so that he could hide Gua King. Before leaving, Yi Fei even borrowed Little Fatty's sumeru space. Then he returned to his cave residence as fast as he could. Gua King, how was it? Did anyone notice you while I was away? Young Master Yi, don't worry. I hid in the cave residence and kept divining good and bad luck. It's all good luck, which means that we weren't discovered, Gua King said in a low voice. He was a smart man, but he didn't ask anything. Chapter 1184. True Martial Sacred Hall. But just in case, Yi Fei still took out the sumeru space and said to Gua King, I'll have to trouble you one more time to enter the sumeru space. Later, I'll find an excuse to go out and bring you back. This way, no one would find out that he took the fake Gua Wang out of the Sacred Academy. As for the missing Qiu Mingshan, Yi Fei didn't care. That was a headache for Cui Yongxian, a Heaven Realm disciple. After all, it was Cui Yongxian who killed him. He just made good use of Qiu Mingshan's body. I just don't know if my plan of using corpse puppets can fool the legalists. Yi Fei was still worried about letting Gua Wang enter the sumeru space. At this time, Shang Luo and the others had also chased after Yi Fei from the martial arts practice field. Seeing that Yi Fei had locked himself in his cave residence after returning to the mountain peak, with a depressed appearance, they were all very worried. Xia Jun suddenly cursed. What bullshit sacred institute is this? When we first came in, we talked about how we would treat Big Bro well. But now that we're here, they completely forgot about him. If I had known this would happen, I would have joined another sacred institute. Second brother, that's not right. I remember you said that the true Martial Sacred Academy has a lot of beauties. You are the only one who would choose the true Martial Sacred Academy. The little fatty was very honest. But this kind of honesty made Xia Jun want to cry. Little fatty, don't tell anyone about this in the future, Xia Jun warned him. In exchange, Shang Luo and Lin Tianjiao looked at him with disdain. At this time, hearing the noise outside, Yi Fei took the sumeru space and quickly came out of the cave. He didn't have time to talk to everyone. Nodding his head, Yi Fei hurriedly walked outside. Shang Luo finally couldn't bear it any longer. She couldn't just watch Yi Fei continue to be depressed like this, so for the first time ever, she encouraged him. Isn't it just the Sacred Institute that doesn't value you? What's the big deal? At most, just like before, you can cultivate alone. Oh right, that elemental spirit Dan, this fairy will give it to you. I don't need your spirit stones. Lin Tianjiao was shocked to see Shang Luo so generous. Yi Fei, who was in a hurry to send Gua Wang out, stopped and turned around in shock. Shang Luo, is that true? Of course. Shang Luo said generously. It's only worth a few spirit stones anyway. Hearing this, Yi Fei almost vomited blood. It's only worth a few spirit stones, yet you charged me 2 billion. However, since it was rare for Shang Luo to be so generous, Yi Fei wasn't foolish enough to refuse. He nodded happily and said, Shang Luo, many thanks. I still have some matters to attend to, so I'll head out first. After that, Yi Fei ran away. Strange, why do I have a feeling that I was fooled? Shang Luo's face was filled with suspicion. Wasn't Yi Fei in low spirits and had suffered a blow? Yet, Yi Fei had left with such vigor that he didn't seem like someone who had suffered a blow. Shang Luo couldn't understand. The supervisor of the Sacred Academy, who was in charge of controlling the Wuxian space, also couldn't understand why Yi Fei left in such a hurry. After wandering outside for half a day, Yi Fei and Gua Wang came back together. What do they think the Sacred Academy is? They come and go as they please? No wonder the higher-ups of the Sacred Academy don't value him. Looking at Yi Fei's back, the supervisor kept shaking his head. Obviously, the supervisor of the Sacred Academy had heard that the Sacred Academy had given up on cultivating Yi Fei, but Yi Fei didn't know. But even if he knew, Yi Fei didn't care. After all, he had been relying on himself all this time. He joined the Sacred Academy only because of its huge cultivation resources. After asking Gua Wang to return to the mountain, Yi Fei immediately rushed to the exchange hall to exchange all the 500,000 contribution points he had obtained for upper-level spirit stones. With 5 billion spirit stones in hand, not only did Xiao Qiao and the dragon turtle not have to worry about food for a long time, but Yi Fei also finally had the confidence to continue to break through. In the following days, he didn't appear in the Sacred Academy anymore. Instead, he focused on cultivating in seclusion to refine the large amount of spirit stones he had exchanged for and improve his level. Time always passed quickly during cultivation. 10 days passed quickly. On this day, a huge roar came from the cave residence where Yi Fei was cultivating in seclusion. Then, a figure walked out of the cave residence. "I've finally broken through to the 6th level of the Martial Saint realm." Yi Fei was very satisfied. The only thing he was unhappy about was that he had spent 2 billion upper-level spirit stones on this breakthrough. Compared to other martial sages who had spent millions or tens of millions of spirit stones, he had spent more than 10 times more. It couldn't be helped. After all, he had cultivated 8 primordial spirit. Although the primordial spirits could allow Yi Fei to obtain abundant genuine core strength, it also had a huge drawback. The spiritual qi and spirit stones needed to break through to the next level were 10 times or even dozens of times more than what other martial sages of the same level needed. In short, the more primordial spirits one had, the more energy it would take to break through to the next level. For example, Yi Fei had consumed an astronomical amount of spirit stones to break through to the next level. Many martial sages of the same level didn't even dare to dream about it. Whoosh, whoosh. 2 rainbow-colored beams of light flew over from the distant sky. They extended from the sky all the way to the mountain peak where Yi Fei was. After reading the true martial manual, Yi Fei already knew that this was the bridge. Through the bridge, he could head to the true martial sacred hall. In the cave residence, Shanghai Luo also walked out after hearing the news. She looked very unfriendly. "I've been thinking for 10 days. I feel like I've been fooled. Yi Fei, tell me the truth. Are you not depressed at all?" "Shanghai Luo, you are too suspicious. The Sacred Academy treated me like this. Even now I'm still very sad. I've been forcing myself to smile." Yi Fei pretended to be depressed and then smiled bitterly. Shanghai Luo was still suspicious. However, Yi Fei's acting was too realistic. In the end, she could only give up and take the lead to walk onto the bridge. Yi Fei also walked up. The bridge carried the two of them and turned into a stream of light, disappearing into the sky. They weren't the only ones who disappeared. Rainbows also appeared on the 9 mountain peak. Once again, countless disciples looked at them with jealousy and hatred. Heaven is so unfair. The disciple who ranked 11th even sighed at the sky. He was the one who was truly depressed. 1 year in the true martial sacred palace is equivalent to 10 years outside. 10 years of cultivation is enough to soar to the sky. Once these 10 senior brothers and sisters come out of seclusion, no one in the Sacred Academy will be able to stop them except for those in the heaven stage. I just don't know who will become our leader 10 years later. Will it be Yi Fei or Zhou Bai? It must be senior brother Zhou Bai. That Yi Fei is nothing but a fart. He's been abandoned by the heavens. Let alone 10 years, even if he was given 100 years, he wouldn't be able to compare to senior brother Zhou. A large group of Earth Stage disciples gathered at Zhou Bai's mountain peak. There were no weak Earth Stage disciples. From the way the Sacred Academy dealt with him, They could vaguely feel that the Sacred Academy didn't seem to value Yi Fei very much. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been so biased towards Zhou Bai. Chapter 1185. Sharpening a Sword for 10 Years. So what if you're the top disciple of the Earth rank? Once you're not valued by the Sacred Academy, you'll only be able to show off for a while. 10 years later, even we can trample you under our feet, let alone Zhou Bai. At the entrance of the true martial sacred hall, a few of the top 10 disciples looked at Yi Fei coldly. They did not respect him at all. Instead, they looked at him with disdain and provocation. Then, when Zhou Bai appeared, these disciples smiled and greeted him warmly. Senior Brother Zhou. Senior Brother Zhou, you're here? Senior Brother Zhou, nice to meet you. Ha ha ha, good to all of you. Since everyone is here, I, Zhou Bai, will lead you into the true martial sacred hall, the strongest hall of the Sacred Academy. Zhou Bai was very satisfied. The Sacred Academy's action made him realize how important it was to him. Zhou Bai was in high spirits, except that Yi Fei and Shanglua stood aside and did not come to greet him. This made him a little unhappy. Humph, I'll spare your life for now. 10 years later, I'll make you grovel before me. Let's go. Yes, Senior Brother Zhou. Zhou Bai waved his hand and 4 or 5 disciples surrounded him as they rushed into the true martial sacred hall. Then, Ling Hong and a few other disciples who were more independent followed. Finally, it was Yi Fei and Shanglua's turn. Obviously, Yi Fei was completely isolated. The first in the Earth class was the eldest senior brother of all the Earth class disciples, but no one treated Yi Fei as a senior brother. But Yi Fei's expression was very calm, as if he didn't see what was happening in front of him. Shanglua found it strange. Yi Fei, aren't you angry that they humiliated you? Yi Fei shook his head and did not explain. He suddenly remembered a famous saying in his mind, "What should I do when people slander me, blame me, humiliate me, and curse me? I'll let them be. I'll let them be and ignore them. I'll come and see them in 3 years. 3 years is too long. I don't have that kind of patience. If the true martial divine hall can really do 10 years in 1 year, then I only need 1 year to flatten them." As he thought of this, Yi Fei felt an unprecedented confidence. He looked at the pitch-black entrance of the true martial sacred hall with a resolute expression. Then, he suddenly started singing. "Let me sharpen my sword for 10 years. If it's not fair, the Holy Academy will not return, rumble." Yi Fei's singing caused the void of the true martial sacred hall to tremble slightly. Then, his figure was swallowed by the void, leaving only Shanglua standing in the same spot. Her eyes were a little dazed, and she was a little speechless. "All right, I admit that this guy is quite handsome when he's bragging seriously." With that, Shanglua also stepped into the true martial divine hall. At this point, the top 10 Earth rank powerhouses had all entered the true martial temple and started 10 years of bitter cultivation. Of course, it was only 10 years inside the temple. According to the true martial handbook, 10 years in the temple was equivalent to 1 year in the outside world. The true martial sacred hall had contributed a lot to the true martial sacred academy being able to dominate the 4 sacred academies in the past. The interior of the true martial sacred hall was very spacious. There were hundreds of palaces, and each palace had the ability to accelerate time. However, due to the decline of the true martial sacred academy, it could no longer support hundreds of disciples cultivating inside. Therefore, every time the temple opened, only 10 disciples could enter. This time, Yi Fei could enter because of the compensation given to him by the sacred academy. There are so many palaces here. I wonder which one I should choose? Yi Fei walked along the magnificent corridor and looked at the palaces on both sides. At this time, Xiao Chao seemed to have discovered something. She actually hurriedly ran out of the beast mark space and ran towards the innermost palace. Yi Fei was shocked. It was the first time he saw Xiao Chao so excited. But since Xiao Chao ran out of her own accord, it means that there is no danger here. After all, she had to cultivate for 10 years. It must be very boring. Since there was no danger here, Yi Fei decided to leave Xiao Chao outside. Of course, the dragon turtle had to accompany her to protect her. Then, Yi Fei followed Xiao Chao and walked quickly to the entrance of a black palace. This palace was very simple. There were no gorgeous statues or gilded buildings. There was only a green bamboo forest inside. In front of the bamboo forest, there was a special stream formed by spiritual energy. Xiao Chao jumped into the stream and swam around happily with the dragon turtle in her arms. Seeing Xiao Chao so happy, Yi Fei didn't interfere. He just told Xiao Chao not to be seen by others and let her run around in the bamboo forest. Then, Yi Fei came to a thatched cottage in the middle of the bamboo forest. There was nothing in the thatched cottage, except for a big green rock. The ground was covered in dust. Only the big green rock was spotless. It was simple and natural. Yi Fei fell in love with this natural aura at first glance. Ever since I started cultivating, I have killed my way through. I have seen mountains of corpses and deceitful people. I have rarely come into contact with such a safe and relaxed environment. This place is suitable for me to sharpen my sword. Sharpen my sword. Nurture my sword. He fetched a bucket of spiritual water from the stream in the distance and cleaned the thatched cottage. Then, he personally wiped the big green rock. Then, Yi Fei took out the devouring soul sword and placed it on the big green rock. He slowly sharpened it. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but when he sharpened the devouring soul sword, the spirit in the sword actually emitted a joyous emotion. Even the undying sword's soul moved slightly, as if it was affirming Yi Fei. Yi Fei was even more delighted. The undying sword's soul has always been lazy. If I can make it release a positive emotion, it means that my decision to sharpen my sword for 10 years is worth it. In these 10 years, I must strive to improve my swordsmanship to the next level. It would be best if I could comprehend the third profound meaning, the profound meaning of the sword. Chi-chi, chi-chi. As Yi Fei sharpened the sword, he secretly set a goal for himself. His eyes gradually became focused. That kind of focus was terrifying. Unknowingly, when Yi Fei woke up from sharpening the sword, a year had already passed. The devouring soul sword in his hand. Not only had it not been damaged by him, it had become even sharper. The impurities in the devouring soul sword have all been removed. It has already turned from an ordinary pseudo-emperor weapon to a supreme-grade pseudo-emperor weapon. Yi Fei was shocked. Sharpening the sword meant sharpening the heart. Sharpening the sword was just a formality. Through sharpening the sword, he recalled all the battles in his life and found his shortcomings. He didn't refine any weapons. How could the devouring soul sword's grade increase by itself? Yi Fei fell into deep thought. Finally, his gaze fell on the big green rock in front of him. This big green rock is extraordinary. I sharpened the sword for a year. Even a mountain could be flattened. However, this big green rock didn't even lose a single stone chip. Yi Fei's face was full of surprise. He had thought that Xiao Chao had run into this palace because he had discovered that there were mountains and rivers here. Now it seemed that Xiao Chao had discovered that this big green rock was extraordinary. I just don't know if this big green rock can turn a pseudo-emperor weapon into an emperor weapon? Yi Fei looked at the big green rock with burning eyes. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but the rock seemed to tremble slightly when it heard Yi Fei's greedy words. Fortunately, Yi Fei had only casually mentioned it and didn't pay attention to the big green rock. Besides, it was impossible for him to take the rock out of the palace. Since the sharpening of the sword has been completed, the hostility in my heart has been quelled and my killing intent has been extinguished. Next, I should practice the sword. Only when I am at the peak of the sword can I be at the peak of the human body. Yi Fei recalled the sword maniac elder's explanation of the way of the sword in the northern region. Then Yi Fei's eyes became pure. He forgot everything. He forgot time, space, and even himself. There was only the sword in his eyes. This world could only accommodate the sword. Chapter 1186. Yin-Yang Taiji Sword Swoosh. Yi Fei's first strike was the 13th sword style. This was the first sword technique he had mastered. He had relied on this sword technique to rise up in Blackstone City. Now, he was using this sword technique again. Memories flooded into Yi Fei's mind like a tidal wave. Then, they fused into the sword in his hand. At this moment, Yi Fei's sword suddenly had emotions. It had its own emotions. Kill. After 13 consecutive strikes, Yi Fei's aura suddenly changed. His cultivation sword suddenly became a murderous killing sword. At this moment, Yi Fei felt as if he had experienced a bloodbath in Blackstone City. He fought with all his might against the entire world. The killing sword was raised high. Heads rolled and fell to the ground. "Bury the heavens!" Yi Fei suddenly spoke in a clear voice. At that moment, he seemed to remember the time he had spent in the Taishan Holy Land. The sword in his hand suddenly disappeared and transformed into another sky. This sky suppressed the real sky. "Bury the heavens! Swallow the heavens! Burn the heavens! Destroy the heavens! This is the sword. This is my way of the sword. My sword can destroy the heavens. If the heavens abandon me, I will destroy the heavens. If the heavens bully me, I will cut the heavens." Rumble. The sword light was like an abyss. It was like a terrifying black hole in the void. In the void, sword fire spread and gathered into a cloud of fire. The cloud of fire dispersed and turned into shooting stars. The shooting stars collapsed and turned into a rain of swords. The rain of swords was like silk and turned into fine silk. Endless and unending. The sword can be hard and soft. The sword can kill and live. In the open space of the thatched cottage, Yi Fei continued to strike with his sword. He was intoxicated. He had forgotten everything. In his heart, he had even forgotten about the sword. This was a very strange state, a state of epiphany. It was triggered by Yi Fei using all the sword techniques he had learned in his life. The sword chi was like silk. With Yi Fei as the center, it suddenly spread out in all directions, forming a surging sword river that slashed out in all directions. In the sky, on the ground, there were swords everywhere. There was no place without swords. With a loud bang, Yi Fei's sword was no longer a simple sword. His sword formed a miraculous field that perfectly fused with the world around him. Sword profound. I have comprehended sword profound. Yi Fei suddenly woke up from the rumbling river of swords. When he came back to his senses, he realized that his epiphany had lasted even longer this time. It had actually taken him a full 3 years. After practicing the sword for 3 years, Yi Fei finally understood what the way of the sword was and what the profound meaning of the way of the sword was. He suddenly recalled the question that the sword maniac elder had asked him on the sword peak. "Do you understand the sword?" "Old Master Jian, I understand now. I understand the sword. My hand is the sword. My heart is also the sword. The sword can kill all living things. The sword can save countless lives. This is my sword." Rumble. Yi Fei activated the sword profound. A terrifying purplish-gold sword light slashed towards the straw hut in front of him. However, Yi Fei's expression was still unsatisfied. "The sword has 2 edges. My way of the sword should also have 2 layers. The sword that kills people is the sword, and the living is also the sword." Purplish gold Taiji sword, split. Just as the sword light neared the straw hut, Yi Fei exhaled. He stopped the sword and split the sword. The purplish gold Taiji sword suddenly separated from both sides. The purple part formed a murderous killing sword. The golden part formed an indestructible living sword. The 2 sword lights separated from each other, but they were also connected. At this moment Yi Fei's heart skipped a beat. He also didn't know that he had entered a second epiphany at this moment. He opened his eyes, which were filled with wisdom and enlightenment. The sword can stab, and it can also swim. Rumble! The two sword lights that separated suddenly merged into one purple and one gold. The two sword lights swam up and down in front of Yi Fei like fish. The sword can swim, and it can also circle. Whoosh! The two sword lights that were moving up and down suddenly separated from each other. They actually went around the thatched cottage, and then fused together with a boom. They once again condensed into an even more brilliant Taiji sword light, and slashed towards the bamboo forest in front of the thatched cottage. The bamboo forest that even the dragon turtle couldn't bite through was silently destroyed by the sword light. A layer of emerald green dust drifted into the air. The destruction of the bamboo forest immediately woke Yi Fei up from his second epiphany. What a powerful sword! So I didn't use the purplish gold Taiji sword's power before. My Taiji sword can still be stronger. Yi Fei's face lit up with joy. He tried hard to recall the sword that he had unconsciously swung in his epiphany. Just now I seem to have separated the Taiji sword into two completely different swords. The killing sword and the living sword coexist. When they are separated, they can avoid the enemy's attack. When they are combined, they can deprive the enemy of their defense. This allows the Taiji sword to unleash even more power. A sword light flashed in Yi Fei's mind. It was only then that Yi Fei understood just how sick the sword profound he had comprehended this time around was. This was practically a unique deprivation profound. Strange. How did I comprehend such a profound? Could it be related to me separating the Taiji sword? Suddenly, Yi Fei thought of a saying he had heard in his past life. Taiji gives birth to yin and yang give birth to the four elements. I originally thought that this was made up by my predecessors. I didn't expect that when I pushed the Taiji sword to the limit, I could really separate the Taiji and form yin and yang. The Taiji is a perfect defense, and the yin and yang are perfect depriving. The more Yi Fei thought about it, the happier he was. He had made the right choice in coming to True Martial Sacred Hall. He had only entered the hall for a short while, but he had already encountered the epiphany that every warrior dreamed of. Furthermore, it was a second epiphany that allowed him to successfully comprehend the sword profound and the Taiji yin and yang sword. If it isn't because my luck is heaven-defying, then there must be some treasure nearby that can allow me to enter an epiphany twice in a row. No, it should be 3 times. Yi Fei suddenly thought of the time when he had sharpened his sword and honed his spirit. He had originally intended to hone himself for 3 to 5 days to find the right state of mind. In the end, he had actually honed himself for a year. That was also a type of epiphany. However, it was not a martial arts epiphany, but a spiritual epiphany. And these 3 epiphanies all had a crucial point. It's that huge green rock. I had 3 epiphanies and cultivated beside that huge green rock. There's definitely something wrong with that huge green rock. Schwa. Yi Fei's gaze. Immediately, he turned to the big green rock in front of the cottage. He did not know if it was an illusion, but when he stared at the big green rock, the rock seemed to shake slightly. Before Yi Fei rushed over and picked up the big green rock to see what was going on, the big green rock suddenly shook. Boom! That huge green rock suddenly flew up rapidly and was about to fly into the distant void. Yi Fei watched this scene with his mouth agape. What the hell, that rock is flying. There's definitely something wrong with it. Stop right there. Yi Fei broke into a run and chased after it. He was extremely anxious. He was afraid that the sacred court had deliberately placed this rock here to spy on him. He had cultivated here for so long. Wouldn't all his secrets be exposed? The most frightening thing was that Xiao Chao was outside. If the sacred court found out that he had a spiritual item of heaven and earth with him, who knew if the quasi-emperors of the sacred court would act like the legalists and try to snatch it away? It's said that the quasi-emperors of the sacred court are very old and urgently need spiritual pills or spiritual items to prolong their lives. If they find out about Xiao Qiao, the consequences, just thinking of this made Yi Fei shudder. Chapter 1187. Strange boulder, stop right there. Yi Fei activated 100 miles in an instant and rushed towards the boulder. He wanted to hug it, but to his surprise, the boulder flew even faster than 100 miles in an instant. In the blink of an eye, it slipped away right under Yi Fei's nose. It looked like it was about to enter the void and disappear. Fortunately, Yi Fei's shout alerted Xiao Qiao and the dragon turtle, who were still playing outside. The dragon turtle's speed was much faster than Yi Fei's. It could travel hundreds of miles in one breath. Seeing that Yi Fei couldn't even catch up to a boulder, the dragon turtle secretly mocked him. Of course, it let out a domineering roar and became majestic and domineering. It instantly rushed in front of the large green rock and was about to stomp the large green rock into the ground with its thick dragon legs. At this moment, the large green rock, which had sensed danger, suddenly emitted a layer of green light from its surface. It also used all its strength to crash into the dragon turtle. Bam! Yi Fei found it unbelievable. The huge dragon turtle was sent tumbling by the boulder. It turned into a meteor and flew away. At the same time, the boulder actually opened its mouth to speak. Heavens, it's killing someone. That turtle wants to stomp someone to death. It hurts so much. The boulder shouted as it flew around in the sky. The dragon turtle was so angry that it roared and spat out a large mouthful of dragon flames. It was clearly the boulder that hit it, but this stupid boulder was still crying out in pain. In its anger, the dragon turtle completely went against the boulder. Both of them were very fast. In an instant, they turned into two rays of light, one green and one black, and began a lightning-fast chase in the sky. Yi Fei's face was covered in cold sweat. Damn, not only is there a problem with this boulder, it can even speak. If it tells others about what happened here, not only will I be exposed, Xiao Qiao will also be exposed. I definitely can't let this stupid boulder go. Taking advantage of the fact that the boulder was entangled with the dragon turtle, Yi Fei quickly joined in the pursuit of the boulder. The bluestone screamed even more miserably. Oh my God, I can't live like this. I'm going to kill someone. I'm going to die. Emperor Jinwu, your disciples are too cruel. Help, help. Although he shouted that, the boulder was really strange. It was not damaged at all after being spat out a few mouthfuls of dragon flames by the dragon turtle. Yi Fei was enraged and decided to use the Taiji bipolarity sword. Two sword beams, one gold and one purple, turned into two yin-yang fish and quickly surrounded the boulder. At this moment, the bluestone screamed even more miserably. He shouted, "Oh my God, it's that strange Tai Chi yin-yang sword. Help! They're really going to kill me!" As if it knew the power of the Taiji yin-yang sword, the large green rock suddenly stopped fighting with the dragon turtle. Instead, it suddenly fell from the sky to the ground like a meteor. The moment it landed, two illusory green legs magically grew from the bottom of the boulder and started running wildly on the ground. Yi Fei was dumbfounded. He felt as if he had seen a ghost in broad daylight. Did this boulder become a spirit? It can actually cultivate and grow legs. Oh no, Xiao Qiao, dodge. Suddenly, Yi Fei noticed that the boulder was running in the direction of Xiao Qiao. He was shocked. The dragon turtle also roared and wanted to return to Xiao Qiao's side as fast as it could. However, the boulder was running too fast. It was like a bolt of lightning. Yi Fei could only ask Xiao Qiao to dodge. He made up his mind. Even if he had to let the boulder go, he could not let Xiao Qiao get hurt. However, after hearing his words, Xiao Qiao reacted even more strangely. She looked at the boulder that was running towards her with bright eyes. Then, Xiao Qiao finally remembered why she had rushed into this palace in such a hurry. Originally, she had sensed that there was good food here and ran over to look for food. However, the interior of this palace was too beautiful. Unknowingly, Xiao Chao had started playing with the dragon turtle. When the boulder appeared, she was chased by Yi Fei and the dragon turtle at the same time. Only then did Xiao Chao remember her real purpose for coming in. She pointed at the boulder and excitedly squeaked, as if she had found something delicious. Not only did Xiao Chao not dodge, but she also strode forward with her short legs like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey. She pushed the large blue stone to the ground and eagerly opened her mouth to reveal her two small canine teeth. She aimed at the large blue stone and bit down. Crunch! Yi Fei clearly heard the sound of a candy being chewed. He was stunned to see that not only was Xiao Chao not sent flying by the boulder, she even left a small bite mark on the boulder. This unforeseen event scared the boulder so much that it screamed like a pig being slaughtered. "I can't live anymore. Whose little girl is this? She's so cruel. She even eats rocks." As it spoke, the green light on the boulder became even more intense. It almost turned into a solid whirlwind that threw Xiao Chao away. Yi Fei was worried that Xiao Chao would be hurt. However, he quickly realized that his worries were for nothing. Squeak, squeak. Xiao Chao took a bite and found that it was quite delicious. She immediately ignored the boulder's fierce resistance and serious protest. She opened her small mouth and took another bite. Her small face was filled with happiness. Even though it was a rock, the large blue stone was so angry that smoke came out of its body. It was afraid that Xiao Chao would eat it whole. The large blue stone was terrified and repeatedly begged for mercy. "Spare me, little ancestor, spare me, ah! I'm a Tao comprehension stone, not a big steamed bun like you think. God Emperor Zhenwu, you tricked me." The boulder screamed and struggled, but Xiao Chao's appetite was too good. She took another bite. As expected, the taste was not bad. Xiao Chao wanted to take another bite. Yi Fei's heart was overjoyed. Sure enough, there was always something to overcome something else. "You're just a piece of stone, yet you ran in front of Xiao Chao, who eats spiritual stones like food. You're lucky that you didn't bite her to death. If you don't want to die, then tell me your background. Also, who sent you to monitor me?" Yi Fei told Xiao Chao not to eat the boulder for the time being. Xiao Chao then gave up the idea of taking a third bite. At the same time, she made a threatening face at the boulder. The boulder was also very tactful. It immediately cried and complained, "Little ancestor, you're bullying me. I'm not spying on you. It was you who broke into my palace and used me to gain enlightenment. I can tolerate it. I can tolerate it when you destroyed the Vajra bamboo that God Emperor Zhen Wu personally planted. However, I can't tolerate it when you want to eat me. You know who I am. I'm a Tao comprehension stone. I'm a heaven and earth spirit stone that God Emperor Zhen Wu personally transformed. The entire true martial divine hall is cultivating for me. That old bastard Jinwu is not a human being. He put me here as the inheritance treasure of the sacred academy and used me to help his disciples cultivate. Now, he even wants this ferocious little girl to eat me. What's the point of living like this? I don't want to live anymore. Don't stop me. Let me die." Chapter 1188. The God Emperor's lecture. Yi Fei immediately saw, through the large green rocks, evil intentions. He was the strongest here. Since they were born with opposing attributes, Xiao Chao had the big blue stone completely under her control. If the large green rock wanted to escape, it could only find a way to escape from the dragon turtle. Yi Fei could not be bothered to expose Xiao Chao. He pouted at her and said, "Xiao Chao, since this lousy rock is not obedient, there is no point in keeping it. Steam it or fry it. You can eat it however you want." Xiao Chao had never thought that a rock could be fried. Her eyes had already become big hearts. She swallowed her saliva in an ungraceful manner. Hearing Xiao Chao's saliva, the large green rock, which was about to quietly roll away from the dragon turtle, immediately rolled back in fright. It even rolled to Yi Fei's feet and scolded, "Brat, you must be honest. If it weren't for me, would you have been able to comprehend the Taiji Yin-Yang sword for 4 to 5 years? So you also know about the Taiji Yin-Yang sword. It seems that you are indeed spying on me." Yi Fei's tone turned cold. He did not want anyone to know about the secret of Taiji or Xiao Chao. Hearing Yi Fei's unfriendly tone, the large green rock was so frightened that a layer of transparent green sweat appeared on its body. Then, it roared at Yi Fei angrily, "Spying on me? My ass! I am the inherited treasure appointed by the God Emperor. If I were spying on you, would you have been able to comprehend the Tao for so many years?" The large green rock's words were very honest. After careful analysis, Yi Fei realized that the large green rock had no reason to lie to him. If this rock was really sent by the sacred court to spy on me, it would have told the sacred court when it discovered Xiao Chao. The quasi-emperors of the sacred court would have charged in immediately. How could they have let me cultivate here for so many years? Yi Fei picked up Xiao Chao again and placed him directly next to the big bluestone. He threatened, "All right, I believe that you're not spying on me. But since you don't have any ill intentions towards me, why did you run away?" "Brat, you still have the nerve to say that? Once you realized that I was extraordinary, your eyes looked like you wanted to eat me alive." This little girl was even more ferocious. She even opened her mouth and bit me. If I didn't run away, should I have stayed here and waited for death? The large green rock complained tearfully. Yi Fei couldn't help blushing. He hurriedly changed the topic and said, "Since you are the inherited treasure of the Sacred Academy, why haven't I heard anyone mention it before I came here?" "Humph, of course the Sacred Academy doesn't know that the reason the God Emperor left me here back then was to wait for a fated person. In other words, he was secretly giving special treatment to certain geniuses. Even the deans of the Saint Academy don't know of my existence, let alone you. Only those who are fated by the Divine Emperor can receive personal guidance from Divine Emperor Zhen Wu through me," the large green rock mumbled. Yi Fei was shocked when he heard this. The martial god's personal guidance? Could it be that Divine Emperor Zhen Wu is still alive? Who in this world can survive? At the end of the day, martial gods are just powerful people. Naturally, god emperors will also die. However, although that old bastard is dead, the Tao he taught is still imprinted in my body. My purpose in staying here is to impart his Tao to a fated person in the Sacred Academy so that he can continue developing his martial art. This old man can't even let me rest in peace after his death. My life is so miserable." The large green rock kept complaining, but his tone was gloomy and sorrowful. Yi Fei knew that he was complaining on purpose. He could tell that the large green rock had a special relationship with the Divine Emperor. After interrogating the large green rock, Yi Fei also understood the true origin of the true martial sacred hall. Obviously, the true martial sacred hall was used by Divine Emperor Zhen Wu to worship the large green rock. At the same time, Divine Emperor Zhen Wu had passed on all his martial skills to the large green rock as the inherited treasure of the Sacred Academy. He was waiting for the fated person of the Sacred Academy to receive it. However, from the fact that the Sacred Academy knew nothing about the large green rock, it seemed that Divine Emperor Zhen Wu hadn't received the fated person until Yi Fei appeared. Could it be that I'm the fated person? Yi Fei couldn't help but be pleasantly surprised when he thought of this. So what if the Sacred Academy didn't nurture him? Obtaining the inheritance of Divine Emperor Zhen Wu would be a great reward. The large green rock seemed to understand Yi Fei's thoughts. He didn't hold back and poured cold water on Yi Fei. "Young man, you think too much. To obtain the inheritance of the Divine Emperor, you must first be recognized by the Divine Emperor. Secondly, you must be pleasing to the eye. Especially the first point. Given your identity as a person who has been abandoned by the heavens, it's impossible for you to be recognized by the Divine Emperor. At the same time, the large green rock, which had been chewed by Xiao Qiao like a steamed bun, also looked at Yi Fei with disdain. Yi Fei suddenly felt dejected. Does this mean that I can't obtain the inheritance of the Divine Emperor? Can't you make an exception for me? It's impossible to make an exception for you. Young man, just give up. The large green rock refused to budge and was about to chase him away. Seeing that Yi Fei seemed disappointed, Xiao Qiao got angry. He pointed at the large green rock and made a few grinding motions. The large green rock's tough tone immediately softened. It lowered its voice and said, "Young lady, don't be angry. We gentlemen use our mouths and not our fists. No, gentlemen use their fists and not their mouth." Originally, this kid had no chance of becoming the fated person. However, the Divine Emperor is no longer here. I'm the only one in charge of the Temple of Gods. How about this? After careful consideration, the large green rock realized that it couldn't afford to offend this little ancestor in front of it. Finally, it made a difficult decision. It compromised and said, "How about this? Since you're the second disciple to discover my existence, you can be considered half a fated person. I'll make an exception and let you experience the inheritance of the Divine Emperor. As for how much you can comprehend, that will depend on your luck." Xiao Qiao, well done. Yi Fei was pleasantly surprised. He quickly praised Xiao Qiao. Knowing that he had made a great contribution, Xiao Qiao happily raised his head like a proud little peacock. The large green rock's face immediately turned green. Unfortunately, Xiao Qiao was glaring at it from the side. Facing this little ancestor who only ate rocks, the large green rock clearly didn't have much courage to refute. It could only dejectedly bring Yi Fei back to the thatched cottage and said, "Kid, this is the place where the Divine Emperor preached in his later years. The Tao he preached is contained in my Tao heart. Open your minds and listen carefully." Boom! The large green rock released a green light. Under the light, not only did space distort, but time also began to distort. In this distortion, Yi Fei seemed to have traveled back tens of thousands of years and returned to the most glorious era of the true martial sacred hall. In this era, there were as many martial emperors as there were martial gods everywhere. Just as Yi Fei was looking at the sacred hall, a majestic back suddenly appeared in the sacred hall. The back was as big as heaven and earth. He sat cross-legged above the sacred hall. Below his feet were countless mountains and rivers. Above his head was a bright sun, moon, and stars. What is Tao? Heaven and earth are Tao. The human heart is Tao. The sun and moon are Tao. The mountains and rivers are also Tao. Then, the back figure began to preach Tao. He wasn't facing the disciples, but his back. However, in Yi Fei's eyes, this back figure was more majestic than a mountain and more majestic than heaven and earth. This was the martial god. This was Emperor God Zhenwu. It's a pity that Emperor God Zhenwu is still inferior to the demon god. The demon god can talk to the future me and teach little fatty through time and space. However, Emperor God Zhenwu can only leave behind a back figure in time and space to preach his Tao to the future disciples. Even so, he was still a true martial god. Even though Celestial Emperor Zhenwu wasn't as good as the demon god, Yi Fei was still mesmerized by his teachings. Boom! Chapter 1189. Pure Martial Arts in the Distorted Spacetime. Celestial Emperor Zhenwu continued to preach about his Tao and the Tao of the enemies he had killed. The God Emperor explained everything meticulously without holding anything back. Outside the Divine Palace, many people were already seated. There were martial emperors, and even martial sages. In the ancient era, there was no Wu Jun, no almighty expert, only martial sages. Ancient martial sage. Whether it was the titled Wu Jun or the earth-shattering Supreme Being, both of them had thin spiritual energy. After the human-demon calamity, the martial artists of the later generations had no way to forcefully raise their cultivation by 2 rank. Therefore, it was so difficult for current martial practitioners to break through to the 12th level of the martial saint realm. Actually, there are only 12 layers of the martial sacred realm, and each layer represents a heavenly layer. I made a mistake in my cultivation. The cultivators of the later generations all made mistakes in their cultivation. Why was it so difficult to break through to the martial emperor realm now? The decline of the martial way was a part of the reason. The main reason was that the current martial artists had lost the correct way to cultivate to the martial sage realm and had gone astray. The God Emperor's sermon continued. Everyone in the space-time space was mesmerized by it. Yi Fei was similarly mesmerized by it. His eyes suddenly brightened, and his mind became clear. Everything in front of him became different. A martial sage is not a martial sage. We, the martial artists of the later generations, are all missing the most crucial step in the martial sage realm. Although this does not affect us from breaking through to the martial emperor realm, the risk, time, and price we have to pay will be great. As he listened, Yi Fei suddenly made a decision. He was going to give up on his current cultivation level. He was going to recultivate as a martial sage. Not according to the current cultivation method, but according to the ancient cultivation method. Then, Yi Fei started to reorganize his martial arts according to Emperor Zhen Wu's explanation. He cultivated 2 types of martial arts, the fighting god path and the fighting demon path. The war god Dao increases my talent to challenge those above my level, while the war demon Dao increases my physical strength. The immortal emperor's scripture transforms my true Yuan. Their starting point was too high, and they had neglected the most important thing, which was their foundation, the foundation of a martial saint. I am a person who has been abandoned by the heavens. When I face the martial royal tribulation in the future, it will be more terrifying than the others. As long as I have the best foundation in the martial sage realm, I will be more confident in overcoming the heavenly tribulation. I'm not sure if I'm lucky. What Emperor Zhen Wu is going to talk about is the most basic martial sage path, martial way returning to truth. As long as I cultivate again according to the pure martial way, I will be able to reverse this mistake and become a true ancient martial sage. Yi Fei's eyes gradually brightened as he mumbled to himself. He could no longer hear anything. His mind was completely immersed in his cultivation. He began to reconstruct his own path to becoming a martial saint according to the principles of returning to truth. At the same time, Yi Fei did not know that returning to truth was the core secret of the 4 sacred academies. Usually, only the holy sons would receive guidance from the Saint Academy. They would start from the wrong path of martial arts and reverse the situation. They would make up for their own shortcomings and become a powerful martial sage comparable to the ancient times. Boom! In the distorted space-time, Emperor Zhen Wu was still preaching. However, when Yi Fei made up his mind to cultivate returning to truth, Emperor Zhen Wu's huge back slowly turned around. Although Yi Fei could not see his face clearly, Emperor Zhen Wu's face was filled with admiration. Then, the distorted space-time disappeared. Emperor Zhen Wu's figure also slowly disappeared. Yi Fei appeared in the cottage again. However, his realm was dropping rapidly, reaching Heaven Realm LV6, Heaven Realm LV5, Heaven Realm LV4, Earth Realm LV10, Wu Jun LV3. Xiao Chao was the first to discover the change in Yi Fei's realm. However, Yi Fei was still in a state of enlightenment. Xiao Chao did not dare to disturb him. She could only look angrily at the large green rock. This time, the large green rock did not pay attention to Xiao Chao. Instead, it shouted in shock, "How is it possible? He has only been enlightening for 6 years. How could he have comprehended returning to truth? He is obviously not the fated one. How could he have comprehended the Emperor Zhen Wu's unique skill? That's right. Returning to truth was a super unique skill that was not inferior to any other martial art. It did not have any power. However, its greatest power was that it could make one's martial arts reach returning to truth. One could become a powerful ancient martial sage. Sigh, what a pity. If I had known that this guy's comprehension was so terrifying, I would have violated some principles and let him comprehend for 10 or 20 years. Perhaps he could have really obtained the complete inheritance of Emperor Zhen Wu. Then, I could have left the true martial divine palace earlier and gained my freedom. The large green rock suddenly sighed. After that, it no longer spoke. The misty blue stone began to emit a misty green aura that enveloped the entire thatched cottage. Under this aura, the speed at which Yi Fei's cultivation level dropped became even more terrifying. It seemed that his primordial spirit was about to be destroyed. At that moment, a mysterious gate opened in Yi Fei's body. Endless potential turned into layers of mysterious martial arts runes that appeared on Yi Fei's body. As these runes appeared, the battle demon Dao and battle god Dao in Yi Fei's body miraculously stopped clashing with each other. Instead, they merged together. The battle god Dao finally allowed the battle demon Dao's true yuan to enter his primordial spirit. The battle demon Dao also allowed the battle god Dao's true yuan to enter Yi Fei's body. At the same time, the two demon gods behind Yi Fei also merged quickly. Then, they formed a purple-gold demon god that raised its blood-red sword and roared. Azura battle demon? This guy is actually cultivating the path of despair. The large green rock was utterly shocked. Following this, its voice was drowned out by the rumbling of the true yuan inside Yi Fei's body. His true yuan was like a river with a magnificent aura. As soon as Yi Fei's cultivation dropped to the martial sacred realm, his accumulated true yuan began to rise rapidly. First layer, martial sacred realm. Second layer, martial sacred realm. Third layer, martial sacred realm. Fourth layer, martial sacred realm. Yi Fei's cultivation finally stopped after reaching the sixth layer, martial sacred realm. At that instant, his cultivation was the same as before. However, Yi Fei was no longer the current martial sacred realm, but the ancient martial sacred realm. What's the strongest thing about the ancient martial sacred realm? Their strength, and their comprehension of the force of the heavens and earth. Who would have thought that after achieving the true realm, not only did I become an ancient martial sacred, my force of the heavenly sword has also increased to 120%. 120% heavenly sword was the standard to achieve the martial dominator realm. Once the force of the heavens and earth reached the 12th level, the power of the martial dominator tribulation would be weakened by half. However, it was extremely difficult to achieve 120% force of the heavens and earth. Normally, only cultivators with powerful bloodlines were able to forcefully break through with the power of their bloodlines. For ordinary cultivators, achieving 100% force of the heavens and earth was their limit. Chapter 1190. Taichi Domain. Yi Fei was overjoyed. The reason why people who had been abandoned by the heavens were called martial trash was that almost all of them would experience a heavenly tribulation that was 10 times or even 100 times more powerful than others. Such a heavenly tribulation was enough to kill a martial emperor or even an emperor-to-be. How could a mere martial sage survive it? Even though Yi Fei had gone through 2 heavenly tribulations, he did not have the courage to face his own martial emperor tribulation. Although Elder Lu told me that the chances of experiencing a heavenly tribulation decrease with each ultimacy that I cultivate, even if I successfully cultivate 10 ultimacies, I can only reduce the heavenly tribulation from 100 times to a 10 times heavenly tribulation. A 10 times heavenly tribulation. Thinking of the 2 heavenly tribulations that he had gone through, he knew that if the power of the heavenly tribulation increased by 10 times, he would be risking his life. Returning to martial truth is more comfortable. It can reduce the power of the heavenly tribulation by half. In other words, if I work harder and cultivate 10 ultimacies, I will not have to face a 10 times heavenly tribulation, but a 5 times heavenly tribulation. Yi Fei might not be confident in facing a 10 times heavenly tribulation, but if it was only a 5 times heavenly tribulation, Yi Fei was still energized. Then, he stared at the big green rock with bright eyes. The big green rock was so frightened that it shuddered and quickly moved away. Boy, you can't burn the bridge after crossing it. You only have one chance to listen to the martial god's lecture. Even if you let the little girl eat me, I can't give you any benefit. Yi Fei smiled brightly when he heard this. He touched his chin and said, "So, you are useless to me. You know so many of our secrets. What should I do?" After all, the big green rock had followed Emperor Zhen Wu. Since he had met it, Yi Fei had to squeeze as much out of it as possible. Faced with such a blatant threat from Yi Fei, the large blue stone was so angry that thick smoke came out of it. It cried out, "I can't live anymore. Young man, don't be impulsive. Let's talk things over. How about this? I'll give you some pointers one more time. I also swear that I won't tell anyone about you. We're even now, right?" "Alright." He knew that this was the rock's bottom line. Besides, as long as he could force the rock to make a promise, he wouldn't have to worry. The secret between him and Xiao Chao had been discovered by the Sacred Institute. Sigh, the disciples of the Sacred Academy are truly getting more and more vicious with each generation. That disciple from before wanted to capture me, and this time around, he is even more ruthless. He even ate a stone. The gigantic blue stone jabbered on. Yi Fei, on the other hand, was shocked. He suddenly remembered what De Qingshi had said. "Big stone, you said you met a second person before me? Could it be that someone else has obtained ancient god Emperor Zhen Wu's inheritance?" The large green rock said disdainfully, "Bah, how can you be considered to have obtained the inheritance like this? Let me tell you, Emperor True Martial Emperor left behind 3 legacies. They are the pure truth scripture, heaven's punishment scripture, and the most powerful true martial scripture. Kid, you were unlucky to have only obtained the most basic pure truth scripture. That kid from before was much luckier. He obtained the heaven's punishment scripture of the martial emperor realm. Unfortunately, that kid was an ingrate. After I passed on the heaven's punishment scripture to him, he actually wanted to capture me and forcibly obtain the most precious true martial scripture. Fortunately, I ran fast enough. From now on, I don't like anyone." De Qingshi cursed and swore. Hearing this, Yi Fei was even more shocked. True martial 3 chapters, heaven's punishment scripture? Could the first person to obtain the inheritance be the heaven's punishment boundary emperor? However, before he could ask for more details, De Qingshi suddenly changed the topic and said in a very serious tone, "Kid, listen carefully. I will only give you guidance once. Whether you can comprehend it or not will depend on your own luck." Hearing this, Yi Fei was very depressed. Why do these rocks always like to call themselves masters? Fortunately, De Qingshi was only talkative and was much more reliable than the Azura Sacred Palace's stone puppets. In order to send Xiao Chao, the little ancestor, away as soon as possible, the big blue stone came up and said, "Kid, do you know why a martial sage who comprehended the pure martial way was called the most powerful martial sage in ancient times?" Before Yi Fei could reply, De Qingshi had already said in a deep voice, "Because the pure truth martial way can condense all the profound meaning that a martial sage has comprehended and form a domain that only a martial emperor can possess." Domain? De Qingshi's words were no doubt a bolt of lightning that shook Yi Fei's mind. Never in his wildest dreams would he have imagined that he would come into contact with a martial emperor's domain when he was only a martial sage. Dragon Turtle and Xiao Chao widened their eyes as if this was the first time they had seen De Qingshi. It's just a domain. What's there to be surprised about? In fact, profound meaning, domain, and rules are all extensions of the martial way. If one's cultivation realm is high enough and one has a high level of comprehension, one can also master them in advance. For example, when Emperor God Zhenwu was a martial sage, he had mastered half of a domain. De Qingshi reminisced. However, Emperor God Zhenwu was not the most powerful. It was said that the real peerless geniuses could form a complete domain when they were only martial sages. Those people were the most powerful geniuses in ancient times. Only they were qualified to break through to the martial god realm and pursue the mysterious sovereign of heaven and earth. Boom! Yi Fei's heart shook violently. I thought that being able to comprehend profound meaning when I was only a martial sage was amazing. Who would have thought that there were geniuses from ancient times who could comprehend a domain that was stronger than profound meaning when they were only martial sages? Ha ha, young lad, you must have suffered a blow. I'm not afraid to tell you that such peerless geniuses existed not only in ancient times but also in Middle Region. It's just that you don't have the right to see them. Alright, let's stop with the idle chatter. Your aptitude is trash, but at least you have comprehended 3 ultimacies and completed the pure martial way. Even if you can't control half of the realm, just a trace of it is enough for you to become the most powerful martial sage. You can easily defeat ordinary semi-sovereigns. If you encounter martial emperors who are not strong, you can use your domain to block them. Yi Fei listened to the stone chattering away, refusing to tell him how to form a domain. Yi Fei endured it again and again. After saying so much, at least tell him how to form a domain. Yi Fei roared in his heart. Perhaps De Qingshi had sensed Yi Fei's unfriendly expression, so De Qingshi decided to teach Yi Fei. Open your mind and release all your profound meanings. Then, try to merge them with the heavens and earth. As De Qingshi spoke, a green light formed a ball of air and surged into Yi Fei's body. Sensing that the air had no ill intentions, Yi Fei immediately released the 3 profound meanings that he had comprehended. Sword, profound meaning. Life and death, profound meaning. Tai Chi, profound meaning. However, these 3 profound meanings were not merged with martial arts but completely merged with the heavens and earth. Originally, with Yi Fei's limited knowledge, even if he understood how to transform profound meanings into a domain, he would not be able to do so in a short period of time. However, De Qingshi had De Qingshi beside him. Under the green light released by De Qingshi, Yi Fei only had to think about it and the heavens and earth around him roared. A strange energy spread out in all directions with Yi Fei as the center. At the same time, a mysterious Tai Chi diagram appeared under Yi Fei's feet. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.